You know, every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, you know, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, you know, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. Well, we're live again today, or I'm live again today. We were live last week with Jefferson Smith. We've got a problem, or Free Speech TV has a problem, which means that you have a problem and I have a problem, because we have not only have we not been hitting our goals, literally every single day we've been doing these fundraising drives or pitches or whatever you want to call them. But we have been not hitting our goals badly. Like, as of this point, we have raised about 20% of what we should have been raising, of what we need to raise in order to keep the network going, in order to keep this show on the air. We are deeply in a hole right now. We've had some just terrible days, you know, literally a $900 day last week. Now, part of that may well be my fault, because last week I was traveling, and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday I pre-recorded the requests for fundraising here on Free Speech TV, and maybe people didn't take them seriously because I wasn't live and I wasn't there. They were pre-recorded, and if so, you know, I apologize to you and to Free Speech TV, but although several of the other shows on Free Speech TV are down too. So I think that, you know, a lot of it may also be just that people are giving money to their favorite Democratic candidates right now because the primaries are happening. And, you know, I totally understand that. I totally get it. But we've got to pick this up today and throughout this week. If we don't, we're really putting this network at risk, and thus this program being on this network at risk. And that's not a good thing. So if you value this program, if you're learning how to, win the water cooler wars and deal with crazy Uncle Ralph at the Thanksgiving dinner and talk to your friends knowledgeably about the issues of the day, if you value this, which I hope, you know, the goals that I'm trying to accomplish for you and for me, frankly, I'm very hopeful that you will call today, 877-378-8669, and say, yes, I want to help. I want to help. Whatever it is, $10, $50, $100, whatever you can contribute, $1,000, $10,000, because we are scary falling behind. We have a new set of premiums. I remember, you know, when Donald Trump first got elected, shortly after, actually, I think it was shortly after he was inaugurated, I got a roll of Donald Trump toilet paper and I put it up on the shelf on the set, and somebody called in and said, you know, that's very disrespectful to the presidency. And at the time, I mean, you know, we were thinking, okay, you know, we'll give him a chance. It's 2.5 years later. With a $20 gift now, you too can have a roll of Donald Trump toilet paper, suitable for, you know, putting in the bathroom, like, you know, like the good china, right? You put it in the bathroom when the company comes. With $50, you get these are one-time gifts of $50. You get a Trump toilet brush with a stand. With a $60 gift, you get both the Trump toilet paper and the stand. With a $120 one-time gift, you get an autographed copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $20 a month commitment for a year, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle, and with a $30 a month commitment for a year, you get the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag and the stainless steel water bottle. It says "Democracy Begins with You" on it. And with a $500 gift, we're going to get together on the internet and have a conversation. We call it a virtual meet and greet, but we'll talk about the issues of the day, and I'll answer your questions. It's not going to be broadcast, so we'll have a candid conversation. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland, Oregon, and hang out in the studio, watch the show. We'll go to lunch, or you can meet me in Philadelphia at the Netroots Nation on July 12th, and we'll have a little cocktail party get together just for $1,000 donors. So those are the premiums. But the really important thing is that we are so scary way behind, and we really need your help. And if you've never donated to Free Speech TV, now is a great time. And if you've already donated to Free Speech TV in the past, and you thought, okay, well, I've given for this year, we need your help for this quarter. We really do. Free Speech TV really does. If we want to make this network work, if we want to keep this programming on the air, it costs money to send the satellite, the streams up to the satellites. It costs money to have a staff that, we're all kind of running on a shoestring here, and we're doing it with your help. And a lot of small gifts adds up to something really big and really consequential. And, the occasional large gift is much appreciated too, if you have the means. And, I realize a few of you may, but, most people it's a little harder. So, but now is the time, please. Free Speech TV, we just absolutely have to keep this going, particularly in the critical election. This is such a critical time to have genuine progressive voices out there. We're going to have Ro Khanna on the program that we're taking your calls for an hour, for example. You're not going to hear that anywhere else. So call now, please. Thank you. And greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you live from Washington, D.C. today as we're on book tour with The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. There is a lot of news that we will be getting to, more graft and corruption coming out of the Trump-Kushner families. Surprise, surprise. It's just incredible. But right now on the line with us is Professor Lawrence Tribe. He's the Carl M. Loeb University professor and professor of constitutional law at Harvard Law School. His latest book is To End a Presidency, The Power of Impeachment. And you can tweet him at Tribe Law. Professor Tribe, welcome to the program.
Good to be with you, Tom.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, you wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post in which you suggested that impeachment doesn't necessarily have to mean removal from office. Can you explain that?
Sure. Well, that part is actually not new. Impeachment is the process by which the House of Representatives decides whether the president should be charged with high crimes and misdemeanors. And in the usual sequence of things, that goes over to the Senate for trial. The Senate, however, has become something of a graveyard these days, and McConnell, who is the leader of the Senate, prides himself on what he calls himself, I guess, the Grim Reaper. And a lot of people, including, I think, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, are concerned about starting up an impeachment process that is aimed for the graveyard. And in my op-ed, I explain that although impeachment usually is the first of two huge steps, the second of them being a trial in the Senate, the impeachment process in the House of Representatives has sometimes been its own reward. It's sometimes led to findings of guilt, essentially a verdict of high crimes and misdemeanors. That's what happened to Richard Nixon. He then resigned, of course, before anything could have happened in the Senate. It's something that the House of Representatives is perfectly capable of doing. And so what I urge is that the House immediately begin an impeachment inquiry, hear from witnesses of the sort that are going to be much easier to compel to testify if it's an impeachment proceeding. Witnesses like Don McGahn, the former White House counsel, his top aide, Danny McDonnell, Hope Hicks, who was there by the president's side while many of these decisions were being taken. Those people will have no way to resist even judicial compulsion to testify in an impeachment inquiry. In the meantime, the president and his defense lawyers can be given a full opportunity to respond Nixon was given that opportunity. He passed it up, but he did send a lawyer to represent him in the House, James St. Clair. We should do that with this president so that he can't claim that he was railroaded, that it was just another witch hunt. He'll have a full chance to present his defense, and then the House of Representatives should reach its conclusions. Has he committed high crimes and misdemeanors? I think the answer is almost certainly going to be yes, but they shouldn't answer the question before they have the hearing. And are those high crimes and misdemeanors so dangerous to the country that he should be out of there as soon as possible? And again, I think the answer is yes. But at the last minute, the House can decide which way to go. Does it hand the impeachment articles as such to the Senate? Or if the Senate's mind is so closed that it hasn't been moved by the hearings and the public attention to the televised day-by-day, drip-by-drip exposures of corruption and criminality, might the House simply decide to wrap it up and itself call these not articles of impeachment, but, for example, conclusions of high crimes and misdemeanors, or findings of conduct unbecoming the Commander-in-Chief of the United States, something that will get the public's
So this would
attention
be like a resolution,
stamp
basically.
the president's forehead with a scarlet eye for impeachable. And then he'll have a much harder time getting reelected.
So that would be basically like a resolution of
yes,
sorts.
Yes, it would be formally a resolution of the House, a sense of the House resolution. But a lot of people sort of poo-poo resolutions as though they're not going to make a difference. A resolution that comes at the end of a nationally televised, public, almost trial, and that is appropriately labeled, and names make a difference. That kind of resolution would be a huge albatross around this president's already rather thick neck as he goes into re-election.
Yeah. I'm curious how we define an impeachment inquiry. Is there some magic set of words that I know, for example, the Constitution says that the president's power of pardon is limited during an impeachment.
No, not quite.
Does Congress have to say?
It says that he can't pardon himself to get out of an impeachment.
Oh, so it doesn't mean that he can't pardon, for example, Paul Manafort.
While he's being impeached, he can pardon anybody in the world. But the abuse of the pardon power could be yet another impeachable offense. That is, the fact that a president is undergoing impeachment doesn't mean that he loses the veto power, the pardon power, any of his powers. But what happens is that the House gains power. It gets the ability to overcome grand jury secrecy of the kind that we've heard so much about. It gains the ability to compel testimony. No court would refuse to grant an order to hear from the president's White House counsel once the thing is called an impeachment inquiry. And you ask, are there magic words? Yes, impeachment inquiry. Those are the two magic words.
So the Judiciary Committee would convene itself, not a subcommittee of the committee. It would simply convene hearings, and they would call it an impeachment
but
inquiry.
Jerry Nadler doesn't have the power to give it that name all by himself. It takes the Speaker of the House, it takes a resolution of the House to empower the Judiciary Committee or any other committee to conduct an impeachment inquiry looking to the possible impeachment and removal of a high officer of the United States. Here, it would be the president. So it would take a formal step, a step that as soon as Nancy Pelosi gives the green light, that step would be taken. And what I'm trying to do with...
So, looking at the willingness to engage in, at the very least, unorthodox and arguably criminal behavior by this administration, let's say that the Senate or the House convenes, or the House Judiciary Committee convenes a quote, impeachment inquiry, and they subpoena Bill Barr, and they ask the Justice Department to turn over to them the grand jury testimony, and Bill Barr simply says no, and then they hold a contempt hearing, and they hold him in contempt, and then they go to a court.
Tom, the sequence would be different. They would probably go to a court and ask a court to order Barr to take certain steps, like reveal certain things or unredact certain things. That a court would almost certainly order. And if he defies the order...
But what if he ignores the court order?
Well, you know, the Justice Department even now is ignoring temporarily a court order by Judge Sullivan, which he issued last Friday, I think it was, ordering the release of the transcripts of rather dubious conversations that were held between Michael Flynn and Ambassador Kislyak. They're not going to get away with that for long. A court would hold someone like that in contempt, put them in jail if it had to. We're going to come to a point where there is just so many times that the administration can try to just say no.
Right. Professor Tribe, we've got to take a break here. Can you stick around with us, continue this conversation for a little bit?
For a little bit.
Okay, great. Thanks. Hold on just a second. We'll be right back.
Sure.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be back with Professor Lawrence Tribe in just a moment. Stick around. And welcome back. Professor, we've, for the next 4 minutes, our commercial stations are on commercial break, but our non-commercial stations and Free Speech TV and, you know, Armed Forces Radio and everything else, we're still live. So after 4 minutes, we'll summarize whatever we discuss here. But my question is, I guess, you know, the point I was trying to make is, what if they just keep stonewalling and the court says, okay, you got to arrest Bill Barr? They have to say that to Bill Barr, don't they? Justice Department, arrest yourself?
I've gotten something. Sorry.
Oh, that's quite all right. It happens to be from time to time, too.
Just give me a second.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that's clear.
Good.
A court. Courts don't have their. No, I don't know what's happening to my voice. Maybe we should not continue for a bit.
Okay. If you'd like to pause, I'll just go through the sequence that I was imagining. While maybe you can grab a glass of water or something.
Yeah, I'll try to do that. I'll be right back.
Sure. You know, the question that I'm trying to figure out, and this is a conversation that we had on the air here a couple of weeks ago, is if the court says Bill Barr has to go to jail because people arrested.
Okay, hopefully that will work.
And I'm skeptical. Okay, so my question is, you know, if a dozen courts all said to the Justice Department, you have to arrest Bill Barr because he's in contempt of Congress, and every single time Bill Barr says, I'm not going to arrest myself, what do we do?
Well, there are U.S. Marshals. There are other possibilities. But we've never, as a country, come to the point where an executive branch has simply defied a court order. There are legends that Andrew Jackson threatened to defy the orders of John Marshall. He said, you know, John Marshall, let him enforce his order. Where's his army? That would be a genuine constitutional crisis. I think at that point, even the supine Senate would decide that they had to go along with an impeachment that would actually lead to a conviction and a removal of the president. Now, you can get, you know, science fiction scenarios. What if the president refused to leave after he were removed by the Senate? The Senate has never actually voted to remove a president. We've never had a president as bizarre and dictatorial as this one. I really don't have the kind of crystal ball that would tell me where would the army line up, but we would then genuinely be in the situation of a banana republic. We would be in a crisis.
Wow.
Not a happy scene.
Well, we're you know, a 16. Well, we'll continue the conversation in just a moment. Professor Lawrence Tribe is with us, the professor of constitutional law at the Harvard Law School. His latest book, The End of Presidency: The Power of Impeachment. His Twitter handle is @TribeLaw. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Professor Lawrence Tribe is on the line with us, the professor of constitutional law at Harvard Law School. His most recent book, To End a Presidency, The Power of Impeachment. His Twitter handle is Tribe Law. Professor Tribe, we were just discussing what if, I mean, right now, the Justice Department, Bill Barr's branch, you know, that he's the head of the executive branch, is in defiance of specific court orders. If that continues and the president's just in defiance, and even if that goes to the Senate and the Senate says, okay, all right, you know, or like, you know, Barry Goldwater going over to the White House and telling Richard Nixon, you know, we are going to convict you, you should resign. And Trump says no. I mean, it sounds like you said science fiction, except that this is essentially what has happened. This is what happened in you know, Germany, Italy, and Spain in the 30s. This is what has happened more recently in a number of other countries, you know, around the world that have flipped more or less authoritarian. Do you think that there's any possibility that it could get that bizarre with Donald Trump in the White House and Bill Barr in the Justice Department? And if so, what are the remedies?
Well, there's nothing
or is this
that's
the end of the republic?
Beyond imagination with this bizarre president. He's really unprecedented. And I do think it's conceivable that he would simply say, the Army would have to drag me out of here. And then maybe the Army would. I mean, he is the commander-in-chief, but at that point we would be in a crisis of a sort we really haven't had. Even during the Civil War, Lincoln remained at the head of the Union, and there was a civil war. Some people have threatened that if this guy is removed, there will be another civil war. Some of the ones making that threat are crazy. Others, however, are maybe crazy like foxes, and they're well armed. I really don't, you know, I don't have any answer for what would happen then, but I'm desperately hopeful that we can avoid it. We can avoid it because there may be limits, although we have yet to see them, beyond which even this bizarre president will not go.
Yeah. Or another possible scenario would be Trump gets impeached in the House, he gets convicted in the Senate, he, quote, leaves office. Mike Pence immediately pardons him and makes him a senior advisor to the president, and Trump continues to stay in the White House and tweet and basically run the place. Is that even conceivable?
A possibility. That's, in fact, one of the most plausible scenarios. Suppose that Trump is badly defeated in November of 2020. I don't, by any means, assume that'll happen, but suppose he is. Certainly, at the very least, because he has committed so many crimes that could be prosecuted federally as well as in the state courts, he would resign just before the new president took office, and he would arrange to have been given a pardon by the new president for a day, Michael Pence. But he could still then be prosecuted by state courts, and he's committed, I think, a lot of things that are violations of New York criminal law. And there's no way that the power of the pardon, the president's power of the pardon, can wave a magic wand and keep this guy from being prosecuted by the state of New York and by other states.
Any thoughts on how we can minimize or mitigate the damage that has already been done, frankly, and going forward that any of these scenarios might bring about?
Well, I think the most important single thing, and if any of your readers have ways of reaching their congressional representatives who can then speak to Nancy Pelosi, the most important single thing is to begin a process of dramatic public education that can occur only if we really start a genuine impeachment inquiry. If the nation rises up in full awareness of the corrupt criminality that is really not doing anything for the American people, but is selling us out to foreign adversaries. If the nation wakes up, then with a single voice, the government of the United States can drum Trump out of office. his ability to resist
Well,
in a nation without traditions is going to be limited if there is a massive public outcry.
Yeah, and during the Nixon impeachment inquiry, when it started, I'm doing this from memory, but my recollection was that the support for impeachment at the beginning of it, and at that point, some of the crimes were known, was around 17 or 19%, and 6 months later, after all these hearings had been held, public support was 67%, as I recall, and at that point, then it's either he goes along or he provokes a civil war, it seems.
But things are so different from what they were in the Nixon era. There was no Fox News. There was no, there were no social media platforms. People really did get their news from common sources, and there was less distrust of factual information. We live in a different time when a lot of people just will not open their eyes and see what is staring at them. Remember when the president said, "Don't believe what you see or what you hear. It's not really happening. What's happening is what I say is happening."
Right.
I mean, that's the end of truth, and the end of truth spells the end of democracy. So we may not be as lucky as they were in the Nixon period.
Yeah, it seems to me that just that statement in and of itself would qualify as a high crime or misdemeanor.
No. The president can blather all he wants, terrible as that is, but statements like "don't believe anyone but me" are disgusting, but they are not high crimes and misdemeanors. You really need conduct that threatens the country. I think it would be one of the things that I argue in my book is that going overboard and calling everything that you find disgusting a high crime and misdemeanor is itself also a prescription for ending democracy. Yeah,
you're right, and hyperbole has a way of backfiring. Right. Professor Lawrence Tribe, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. His new book, To End a Presidency, The Power of Impeachment. You can tweet him at Tribe Law, professor of constitutional law at the Harvard Law School. Sir, thank you so much for dropping by.
Thank you, Tom.
Great talking to you. Thank you.
You're
we'll be back.
Listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And we'll be back with your calls after the break. What do you think? How do you think this is going to play out? What would you like to see the House and Senate do in this case? Stick around. Well, we're live again today, or I'm live again today. We were live last week with Jefferson Smith, and we've got a problem, or Free Speech TV has a problem, which means that you have a problem and I have a problem, because we have not only have we not been hitting our goals literally every single day we've been doing these fundraising drives or pitches or whatever you want to call them, but we have been not hitting our goals badly. Like, as of this point, we have raised about 20% of what we should have been raising, of what we need to raise in order to keep the network going, in order to keep this show on the air. We are deeply in a hole right now. We've had some just terrible days, literally a $900 day last week. Now, part of that may well be my fault, because last week I was traveling, and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday I pre-recorded the requests for fundraising here on Free Speech TV, and maybe people didn't take them seriously because I wasn't live and I wasn't there. They were pre-recorded, and if so, I apologize to you and to Free Speech TV, but although several of the other shows on Free Speech TV are down too. So I think that, a lot of it may also be just that people are giving money to their favorite Democratic candidates right now because the primaries are happening, and I totally understand that. I totally get it. But we've got to pick this up today and throughout this week. If we don't, we're really putting this network at risk, and thus this program being on this network at risk. And that's not a good thing. So if you value this program, if you're learning how to win the water cooler wars and deal with crazy Uncle Ralph at the Thanksgiving dinner and talk to your friends knowledgeably about the issues of the day, if you value this, which I hope, the goals that I'm trying to accomplish for you and for me, frankly, I'm very hopeful that you will call today, 877-378-8669, and say, yes, I want to help. I want to help. Whatever it is, $10, $50, $100, whatever you can contribute, 1,000, 10,000, because we are scary falling behind. We have a new set of premiums. I remember, when Donald Trump first got elected, shortly after, actually, I think it was shortly after he was inaugurated, I got a roll of Donald Trump toilet paper and I put it up on the shelf on the set, and somebody called in and said, that's very disrespectful to the presidency. And at the time, I mean, we were thinking, okay, we'll give him a chance. It's 2.5 years later. With a $20 gift now, you too can have a roll of Donald Trump toilet paper, suitable for putting in the bathroom, like the good china, right? You put in the bathroom when the company comes. With $50, you get these are one-time gifts. So $50, you get a Trump toilet brush with a stand. With a $60 gift, you get both the Trump toilet paper and the stand. With a $120 one-time gift, you get an autographed copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $20 a month commitment for a year, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle. And with a $30 a month commitment for a year, you get the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag and the stainless steel water bottle. It says "Democracy Begins with You" on it. And with a $500 gift, we're going to get together on the internet and have a conversation. We call it a virtual meet and greet, but we'll talk about the issues of the day, and I'll answer your questions. It's not going to be broadcast, so we'll have a candid conversation. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland, Oregon, and hang out in the studio, watch the show. We'll go to lunch, or you can meet me in Philadelphia at the Netroots Nation on July 12th, and we'll have a little cocktail party get together just for $1,000 donors. So those are the premiums. But the really important thing is that we are so scary way behind, and we really need your help. And if you've never donated to Free Speech TV, now is a great time. And if you've already donated to Free Speech TV in the past, and you thought, okay, well, I've given for this year, we need your help for this quarter. We really do. Free Speech TV really does. If we want to make this network work, if we want to keep this programming on the air, it costs money to send the satellite, the streams up to the satellites. It costs money to have a staff that, and rent and things like that. I mean, it's just, nobody's taking big salaries here, there, or anywhere else that I know of that has anything to do with Free Speech TV. This is all, we're all kind of running on a shoestring here, and we're doing it with your help. And a lot of small gifts adds up to something really big and really consequential. And, the occasional large gift is much appreciated, too, if you have the means. And, I realize a few of you may, but, most people, it's a little harder. So, but now is the time, please. Free Speech TV, we just absolutely have to keep this going, particularly as we go to the election. This is such a critical time to have genuine progressive voices out there. We're going to have Ro Khanna on the program today, taking your calls for an hour, for example. You're not going to hear that anywhere else. So call now, please. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Your city soon on our book tour for The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. I'll be in New York, Washington, D.C., Portland, Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, and Minneapolis. Here I come. More information is available at thomhartmann.com. And welcome back, live from Washington, D.C. Thom Hartmann here with you. I'll be at Busboys and Poets on K Street tonight at 6:30. And let's see, today is Monday. On Wednesday, I'll be at Powell's in Portland at 7:30, as I recall. So we're continuing our conversation here. What do we do about a president like this? Richard in Chicago, it says here you disagree with me. How so? What's up?
And a sounding board.
Richard, you are on the air. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm here. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it, Richard.
I would like to hear somebody that can support Trump or have some kind of counter to your arguments, because it's really troubling when you hear that, well, he has Fox News. He has one outlet out of a million media outlets. He has one media outlet.
He's got probably 700 radio stations in this country carrying right-wing talk radio all day long, too.
Nah, I mean, I listen to WCP.
And he's got dozens of major websites that are funded by right-wing billionaires. You've got, he's got more than just Fox News.
But the Democratic Party owns Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you name it.
No, the Democratic Party doesn't own any of those things. In fact, Google has stopped spidering progressive websites. Google no longer spiders Raw Story, Alternet, Common Dreams. They don't even present that stuff, and yet they're still presenting right-wing websites like Daily Caller. Richard, you're just wrong.
Okay, I will stand it. I will look into that, and if I'm wrong, I will certainly shoot you an email and say I'm sorry, because it looks to me as I just observe the world as a laity, so to speak, that the left wing virtually owns this entire country, and there's Fox News, which I rarely watch, is all of a sudden some kind of...
Well, that's the story that Fox News and right-wing hate radio wants you to think, is that you're a poor, persecuted minority. But the fact of the matter is that the government is controlled by the Republicans, by and large, the federal government. Many state governments are entirely locked down by Republicans. The media in the United States, there's 5,000 or 6,000 radio stations in this country. There's about 1,200 or 1,300 of them that carry talk radio. There are fewer than 20 that carry progressive talk radio. The other 500 or so, in fact, Friday, the reason I wasn't on the air here is because I was at the Talkers Convention, which is where all the people in talk radio all get together for a whole day, and we have all these seminars and whatnot. And literally, there were 3 liberals there, and everybody else was a right-winger, because that infrastructure has been built out. And I've had conversations with these people, with Salem Radio Networks, with some of the other networks, with literally some of the most senior executives, and said, why don't you put on progressive programming? One of them said, I'll never put somebody on the air who's saying that I should have my taxes raised. I mean, the corporations actually do have a self-interest, not necessarily ideology, but self-interest, and they don't want to see their taxes go up, and they don't want to see themselves broken up, which I think is why probably Google has stopped spidering these progressive websites, because much of the conversation on the progressive left is let's break up some of these big media companies.
But I think it's troubling when you see the progressives basically saying you cannot be anything unless you're completely inclusive to everything we believe. I mean, it's almost like 1984.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
I believe.
Give me one example.
The Christian church, I think, is absolutely under attack by the Democratic Party and progressives. Absolutely.
There is no the Christian church. There are all kinds of Christian churches. The Church of Christ is a progressive church.
What I'm saying is that if you don't believe in Christianity as progressives left believe in Christianity, you're an all sorts of horrible person. You have to believe in everything the way we believe, or else you can't have a.
Who said that, Richard?
You can't go to school.
Who said that?
Have a PhD. You can't be a professor. That's what it looks like, Tom.
Richard, I don't know what country you live in, but that's not happening in my country. In my country, what has happened is that with Jerry Falwell and all these other guys that Billy Graham's son, Franklin Graham, that they have hooked themselves up with a particular political party, and they've completely blurred the lines between religion or trying to blur the lines between religion and government. What Christian group on the left is doing that?
I would have to say that just about every theological bent in our academic theological circles is that if you don't believe in marriage, for instance, as the way that Jesus taught marriage, you're some kind of a horrible human being and shouldn't have the right to hold a job.
Jesus never attacked gay people.
He did what? I'm sorry?
Jesus never attacked gay people. I mean, John said that he was the disciple who Jesus loved. I mean, who knows?
No, okay, Tom. But I'm just saying that they attack on people that aren't absolutely left-wing and progressive. Seems to me palpable. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
could be
well,
wrong,
you know,
and I'm not
that's
saying that I'm
that's because
100% right.
this
Just seems like-
victim mentality is being sold to you by right-wing hate radio and Fox News. This is how the billionaires convince you that you are the victim, you know, by basically saying that they themselves are the victims in regard to economics. And in regard to religion, you know, again, you got Falwell and all these guys playing the victim card when they're not victims.
Jerry Falwell is dead.
Who's
where's
dead?
His influence in the
No,
world today?
I'm talking about his son, his multimillionaire son,
Okay,
and Billy
there's
Graham's
lots of
multimillionaire
millionaire
son. That's who I'm talking about.
There's lots of millionaires on your side who are basically running this country, and it's everybody's a victim. I'm not a victim because you're not going to force me to be you, Tom. It ain't never going to happen. So I'm not a victim.
Yeah, exactly. So stop sounding like a victim, Richard.
How can I keep a job if I don't believe like Thom Hartmann?
What?
Same.
I don't know. I don't understand what you're talking about. Your employer is telling you that you have to vote Democratic or they're going to fire you?
It seems to me that's what you see in society as we speak, outside of anything. When you're just out in the world listening to what's going on, it seems like if you don't believe like progressives,
Richard, is what you're complaining about that if you in the workplace start saying that you love Donald Trump, people around you dislike you or freak out or something because of that? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that would be disingenuous to say because I don't like Donald Trump, but I am a conservative without doubt, and I should be, you know, allowed to have a life without being called horrible, phenomenally horrible names because I believe in things that say the church has believed in for 2,000 years. I still believe that, and that would get me literally not a job.
I'm guessing what you're talking about right now is abortion and gay marriage, right?
Gay marriage doesn't mean anything to me. I'm talking about my belief systems. I don't have any dog in the hunt, so to speak, when it comes to two adults getting married. I do have a dog in the hunt when somebody says I have to be inclusive of that I have to now accept that, or else I can't hold a job someplace. That to me is very, very problematic. That's just what it seems like to me.
I still don't understand what you're talking about. There, in most states in the United States right now, if somebody is gay and their employer finds out, or if they're married and they're gay and their employer finds out, or you know or trans or any variation thereof, they can be fired legally. I don't know in any state where somebody who is straight. I beg your pardon?
That's an utter lie. I live in the real world, Tom. That does not exist in any state.
Look at the Huffington Post,
anymore.
Richard. There was an article yesterday. It's probably still up. HuffingtonPost.com about a teacher who married her wife, a lesbian couple, and because she married her wife, she was fired. And this was not by a Catholic school. I get it, you know, Catholic schools saying.
At a Christian school?
No, it was a public school.
Okay.
It was a public school.
I would decry that.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Look it up. The people being discriminated against, Richard, are not you. They're not straight white men. They are gay people. They're people of color. They're women, you know, are being discriminated against. They're making 30% less than men are.
Tom, if I believe that Jesus rose from the dead and I try and get a job in academia, where can I find a job except for some small church somewhere? I'm not going to get a job.
There are all kinds of Christians in academia, Richard.
Come on, Tom.
There's all kinds of Christians. There's.
I'm just saying.
Geez, Richard. Yeah, I'm just boggled by this.
All right.
Richard, you know, thanks for the call. I'm going to move along here. Tim in Beaverton, Oregon. Hey, Tim, what's up? Whoop. Tim, hang on just a second. I'm sorry, I pushed the wrong button. Huh? There we go.
Hello.
Okay, you're on the air. Yeah, you're on the air. Go for it.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah. And we got about 45 seconds here, so quick.
All right, the guy that you just talked to, that's a prime example of exactly what's going on in this country. You know how many millions of people think like that guy does? And the real significant item was when Lawrence Tribe, and I've followed his writings and stuff, when the most important thing he said was that you can't attach the people's awareness and what they want to do 40 years ago, what they want to do now. Look at the Southern Poverty Law Center and the statistics they're coming up with, these homophobic, racist, misogynistic nut jobs that are literally, you know, in numbering in millions in this country. That's what's going to happen. What the Democrats have to do is they have to manipulate the legal system like Trump is and actually issue some warrants for some arrests, because otherwise they're going to continue to manipulate that system, and he's going to stay in office, and they're not going to be held accountable for anything. That's what's happening right now as we speak.
Well, that's what Tribe is calling for. He's saying, it's time to take names and kick ass, basically, and I'm with that. Tim, thank you. Your point is very well taken. We'll be right back. It's 45 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. I'm live from Washington, D.C.
You're
today
listening
from
to
Radio.
Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And a tip of the hat and a million thanks to We Act Radio, our affiliate here in Washington, D.C., for hosting it today and tomorrow. Oh, yeah, that's right. Free Speech TV. Thank you. We're back. Joan in Nashville, Tennessee. Hey, Joan, what's on your mind today? Thank you.
Hey, Tom.
Hi, Joan.
First, a statement. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello,
yeah, just
Tom.
fine.
Can you hear me?
I hear you just
Hello?
fine, Joan.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering if this country survives Trump. Do you think that there are changes that need to be made to the Constitution to avoid something like this again? A rogue president, a criminal president. Do you think that the changes should be made to the Constitution? And if so, what changes do you think they should be?
I think, Joan, that the biggest problem we have right now is not a constitutional one. It is the Justice Department during the Nixon administration. The lawyers in the Justice Department, what's called the Office of Legal Counsel, they are the lawyers for the Justice Department. Not the prosecutors, but the ones who actually defend or decide what the Justice Department can and can't do. Those lawyers during the Nixon era, I believe it was 1973, the impeachment was a year later, they said that a sitting president cannot be indicted for a crime, even if it's clear that he committed a crime. And that's crazy, in my opinion. It was revisited during the Clinton administration. And again, Bill Clinton was looking at impeachment. And the Clinton Justice Department also said, we agree with the Nixon Justice Department. The job of president is so important, and he's got the nuclear button, and he's got a million things that he's got to attend to, and he's so busy that he can't deal with the hassle of being criminally indicted. So the only remedy to stop a president or remove a president is impeachment. And I think that we need to either legislatively either pass a law that says that presidents can be indicted for actual crimes, at least felony crimes, while they're in office, or have the Justice Department rethink what they're talking about. Make sense?
Well, yes, and I was wondering, the statement that you said that the prosecutors came up with in 74, where they said that a sitting president could not. Yeah. Is that really a law, or was that something that was a statement that was made in reference to, I think it was Agnew?
That was merely an opinion.
Is it really a law?
Yeah, I don't recall the context. It might have had something to do with Agnew, but basically it's not a law. It has no force of law. And it's real unfortunate that Bob Mueller dealt with it as if it had the force of law. He could have defied it if he had chosen to. It is not a law. It is just the policy of the Justice Department. And that's why I'm saying that Congress needs to pass a law that says the Justice Department will not give the president a pass if he commits a crime. Joan, I got to run, but thank you for the call. You raise a really important question. We'll be right back. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, live from Washington, D.C., from the studios of We Act Radio. We'll be back. welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Just a quick heads up, by the way. Our next hour, the second hour of the program, is going to be for the entire hour. Congressman Ro Khanna, he represents, I think, the 17th District of California, and he is the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and he's going to be on the air for a full hour taking your calls. So at the top of the hour, Joyce will be going through and asking, if you want to stay in, if you're on the line on hold, if you want to ask your question of Congressman Khanna, because we can continue this conversation into the third hour, but this second hour coming up is going to be that. Elizabeth in Lowell, Massachusetts. Hey, Elizabeth, what's on your mind today?
What's on my mind is that people keep saying that we have three equal the legislature, the executive, and the Senate. And as far as I'm concerned, this is perfect proof that that is not true. They are not equal, because one party can take over two parts of it, which they now have the Senate and the presidency, and stop the other one.
And the Supreme Court.
Yeah. And who has the Supreme Court, Tom?
The Republicans.
Would you say that they have equal progressive and equal, it's obvious who put them in place influence their answers. To me, it seems.
Yeah, I agree, Elizabeth. And this is, by the way, not the first time this has happened. I mean, during the 1920s, the courts got packed with Republicans, and during the Harding, Coolidge, and Hoover administrations. And so when FDR came into office during his first 4 years, they just were continually knocking things down. They knocked down the child labor laws. They knocked down the minimum wage law. They knocked down unemployment insurance laws. I mean, they knocked down all kinds of things, called them unconstitutional. And it wasn't until FDR started threatening the court with regulation, which the Constitution gives Congress the right to do, that the court changed their tune, basically. But it's we have this situation right now. Elizabeth, thank you. You raised an important one. Barbara in Sun City, Arizona. Hey, Barbara, what's on your mind?
Hi. Well, I'm reading an article. It's in the Independent, and the Guardians of Democracy.com has pictures and videos of the headline being armed neo-Nazi group crashes Detroit parade, rips rainbow flags, urinates on Israeli flags. It's all on the video, and they were escorted by the Detroit Police Department, who pushed back the rainbow people and their own parade to escort this group, which is one of the biggest neo-Nazi groups, dressed and armed, into their parade, the National Socialist Movement. And it's on video on this site, theguardiansofdemocracy.com. And they're quoting The Hill, they're quoting in the Independent. It's really frightening, and the fact is our press, I think the lack of our press, as you said, is the most important and horrifying part of this, because they're the fourth estate and they are also part of the government, and that we don't recognize that.
Yeah, well, they're not part of the government, but they were recognized by they're in the Constitution.
In the Constitution.
The First Amendment says freedom of the press, and they're called the fourth estate because they're really the ultimate checks and balances for all the other branches. You're absolutely right. Barbara, thank you for the call. Brenda in Coppers Grove, Texas. Hey, Brenda, what's up?
Oh, thanks, Tom. Hey, I was going to wait for Ro Khanna if I could, but that's okay, too, because, wow.
I can put you on hold if you'd like, Brenda.
I'm sending prayers out to Richard. He couldn't ID anything or anyone in his claims about progressive people. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Our caller, Richard, yes.
Okay, yeah. The tornado that hit here, and we're just outside of Fort Hood, Texas, the biggest military installation in the world, Coppers Cove, Texas. Right. Okay, My question is, when does religion stop being a part of all of this stuff with evangelicals and everybody else, because it serves no purpose except to try to take people's free will away to worship as they will, to honor their gods or their goddesses? When does that end?
I think we need to start respecting religion, absolutely. Barbara, quick question. Is my voice really faint in your ear? Am I coming back to you in a very faint way?
Not at first it was. Now I'm hearing you better.
Yeah. Okay, great.
I didn't have electricity for 13 hours, so it came back on.
Oh my. Okay.
Well, storms in Texas.
Brenda,
anyway.
I get your point about religion, and thank you very much for the call. We really do need to be, we need to go back to the idea that Jefferson and Madison proposed, that religion and government are completely separate things. And, instead we're, like so much of this anti-abortion legislation is being championed by people who call themselves Christians. Marty in Evergreen Park, Illinois. Hey, Marty, we've got a minute to the end of the hour. What's up?
Oh, sure. Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. No, I just wanted to bring up, we were talking about high crimes and misdemeanors and why Trump should be impeached. And I think one of the things we should all be really concerned about, I watched an article from Axios yesterday, and they got it up online, Why Trump is a Florida Man. And it goes all into all of his dealings at Mar-a-Lago and just how we should be really concerned about how the sphere of influence that place has. Membership dues went up from $100,000 a year to $200,000 a year as soon as Trump became president, and he routinely hosts foreign leaders there, including like Shinzo Abe and Xi Jinping, and lots of events go on there that he gets, where people get into his sphere of influence.
Yeah, he's making money. I mean, this is a violation of the constitutional ban on emoluments. This is the fancy word, and basically what it means is people in office hustling their office to make money for themselves, and it's wrong. Marty, thank you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell the list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. Well, we're live again today, or I'm live again today. We were live last week with Jefferson Smith. We've got a problem, or Free Speech TV has a problem, which means that you have a problem and I have a problem, because we have not only have we not been hitting our goals literally every single day we've been doing these fundraising drives or pitches or whatever you want to call them. But we have been not hitting our goals badly. Like, as of this point, we have raised about 20% of what we should have been raising, of what we need to raise in order to keep the network going, in order to keep this show on the air. We are deeply in a hole right now. We've had some just terrible days, you know, literally a $900 day last week. Now, part of that may well be my fault, because last week I was traveling, and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday I pre-recorded the requests for fundraising here on Free Speech TV, and maybe people didn't take them seriously because I wasn't live and I wasn't there. They were pre-recorded, and if so, you know, I apologize to you and to Free Speech TV, but although several of the other shows on Free Speech TV are down too. So I think that, you know, a lot of it may also be just that people are giving money to their favorite Democratic candidates right now because the primaries are happening, and, you know, I totally understand that. I totally get it. But we've got to pick this up today and throughout this week. If we don't, we're really putting this network at risk, and thus this program being on this network at risk. And that's not a good thing. So if you value this program, if you're learning how to you know, win the water cooler wars and deal with crazy Uncle Ralph at the Thanksgiving dinner and talk to your friends knowledgeably about the issues of the day, if you value this, which I hope, you know, the goals that I'm trying to accomplish for you and for me, frankly, I'm very hopeful that you will call today, 877-378-8669, and say, yes, I want to help. I want to help. Whatever it is, $10, $50, $100, whatever you can contribute, 1,000, 10,000, because we are scary falling behind. We have a new set of premiums. I remember, you know, when Donald Trump first got elected, shortly after, actually, I think it was shortly after he was inaugurated, I got a roll of Donald Trump toilet paper and I put it up on the shelf on the set, and somebody called in and said, you know, that's very disrespectful to the presidency. And at the time, I mean, you know, we were thinking, okay, you know, we'll give him a chance. It's 2.5 years later. With a $20 gift now, you too can have a roll of Donald Trump toilet paper, suitable for, you know, putting in the bathroom, like, you know, like the good china, right? You put it in the bathroom when the company comes. With $50, you get these are one-time gifts of $50. You get a Trump toilet brush with a stand. With a $60 gift, you get both the Trump toilet paper and the stand. With a $120 one-time gift, you get an autographed copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $20 a month commitment for a year, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle, and with a $30 a month commitment for a year, you get the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag and the stainless steel water bottle. It says "Democracy Begins with You" on it. And with a $500 gift, we're going to get together on the internet and have a conversation. We call it a virtual meet and greet, but we'll talk about the issues of the day, and I'll answer your questions. It's not going to be broadcast, so we'll have a candid conversation. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland, Oregon, and hang out in the studio, watch the show. We'll go to lunch, or you can meet me in Philadelphia at the Netroots Nation on July 12th, and we'll have a little cocktail party get-together just for $1,000 donors. So those are the premiums. But the really important thing is that we are so scary way behind, and we really need your help. And if you've never donated to Free Speech TV, now is a great time. And if you've already donated to Free Speech TV in the past, and you thought, okay, well, I've given for this year, we need your help for this quarter. We really do. Free Speech TV really does. If we want to make this network work, if we want to keep this programming on the air, it costs money to send the streams up to the satellites. It costs money to have a staff that, rent and things like that. I mean, it's just, nobody's taking big salaries here, there, or anywhere else that I know of that has anything to do with Free Speech TV. This is all, we're all kind of running on a shoestring here, and we're doing it with your help. And a lot of small gifts adds up to something really big and really consequential. And, the occasional large gift is much appreciated, too, if you have the means. And, I realize a few of you may, but, most people it's a little harder. So, but now is the time, please. Free Speech TV, we just absolutely have to keep this going, particularly as we go to the election. This is such a critical time to have genuine progressive voices out there. We're going to have Ro Khanna on the program today taking your calls for an hour, for example. You're not going to hear that anywhere else. So call now, please. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Putin. It's the Mueller report.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back to the second hour of our program. We had an amazing conversation in the first hour with Professor Lawrence Tribe, the law professor of constitutional law at Harvard Law School, about what do we do if the Justice Department continues to defy court orders? What do we do if Trump is even impeached and removed from office and refuses to do it? It was fascinating. This hour, Congressman Ro Khanna is with us. He's the congressman who represents the 17th District of California. He is the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. His website, Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep, as in representative, Rep Ro, R-O, Khanna, Khanna, Rep Ro Khanna. And Congressman, welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. Tough act to follow with Larry Tribe.
Yeah, that was a serious conversation. It was extraordinary. We've got calls for you already lined up here. And you'll be. I don't know if I said this before. You'll be with us for the hour taking calls. But I'm wondering if it's been a while since we've talked. If there's anything that you just wanted to kind of start the hour with, what's on your mind, what your things that you think people might need to know about or do or whatever.
Well, the defense budget is going to be authorized as we speak this week. And so I have been involved in efforts to try to make sure there's no funding for any escalation in Iran. We're still involved in amendments to defund any of the Saudi efforts in Yemen. I want to introduce an amendment on the floor to at least freeze defense spending. I mean, we can't even get an agreement to freeze it at Trump levels. So a lot of the work this week will be focused on armed services, which I sit on, and making sure we're not funding any future war efforts.
Cool. And I should add, by the way, just for your information and for our callers, I'm doing the show today and tomorrow here live remote from our Washington, D.C. affiliate, We Act Radio, and thanks to them for the studio. But because I'm remote, there's about a 1-second delay when we talk with each other. So if you don't worry about the delay, and that's just it's just something we're going to have to put up with. So shall we pick up calls?
That makes sense. I thought maybe my answers weren't comprehensive enough.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Good.
All righty, Morris in Long Beach, California, listening on KPFK. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hey, Congressman O'Connor. Good morning, sir. Listen, please don't believe that myth that a sitting president cannot be indicted. Spiro T. Agnew was about to be indicted, so he stepped down. The same protocol that goes for a president goes for a vice president. So he stepped down. They put Gerald Ford in there. Mr. Nixon stepped down, and Mr. Ford pardoned him. At that time, I was in college wearing a roast clip saying, impeach Nixon. Please do not believe that myth. You guys got more power. I've been to the library. I used to work in the library. You guys got more power than you can imagine. Please, sir, go ahead and start using it. And by the way, Congressman, did you get that book from the congressman that I sent you by Max Blumenthal's Goliath?
First of all, I appreciate the call. And the Spiro Agnew analogy is actually a good one. I'll have my team look into that, because you are right that they were going to press charges, as I remember, against the vice president. But we are moving. I mean, this week in Congress, we're going to have a vote to hold Bill Barr in contempt. We're moving to the courts to make sure that we get the underlying evidence of the Mueller report, which we need. There are aggressively 6 investigations going on. So I think many people will be pleased with the progress we make this week in Congress.
Joe in Cupertino, California. You're on the air with your congressman, I think.
Good morning, Tom, and good morning, Congressman. I'm very impressed. Like you say, we had a lot of people out at the Bernie Sanders thing here in San Jose, and at any rate, I was alive during the 73s, and I remember the impeachment hearings in the television. I think we had like 3 television channels, and it was all in black and white, but the nation was focused on every word. Today, though, I think it's really hard to suggest you're going to get the attention of the American people in that fashion, although I've been listening to Tom, reading me the Mueller report here, and I think I'm on page like 80 or something like that. It's going real slow, but I'm looking forward to the conclusion. That being said, the nation's attention has got to be focused on, something, and I think we have the calendar working against us. The election is coming in 18 months. I want to make sure that this doesn't become a national distraction, but I do believe that right makes might, and we've been in H.R. 1. We voted for a lot of things in the House, but we need to proceed because it's the right thing to do. Nothing's going to get passed. That's out of our control in the House, but we still need to proceed. So I'm asking you to please continue your efforts to hold this president accountable under any means possible. But I do understand Nancy's position. I can count, so can she. We may not be able to get the House or the Senate to approve this, but I think the professor that Tom brought on in this resolution might be a step in the right direction. My question to you is the August recess is it's approaching. And if we don't make that decision to decide whether to proceed with impeachment or to proceed, as I'm hoping we will, proceed to get Bernie Sanders elected, we need to decide what to do. And you're my representative, so I'm taking direction from you. And lastly, I wish you would speak to the House to have President Trump restore the funding taken from the Interior Department to fully fund their fire suppression services on federal lands. Fire season's approaching, and he's taken the personnel out of the Interior Department to pay for this border wall at a time when California's going to be on fire here in about 3 or 4 weeks, if not tomorrow. What do you think?
Well, Joe, I appreciate those points. First, on your point on the funding, you're absolutely right. We need to be funding the Interior Department. We need to be funding our Forestry Service fully, and House Democrats are working on that on the appropriations process. We're not going to allow him to have cuts. We're not going to allow him to have cuts to NIH and many of the other productive agencies that he wants, and I think the House Democrats will prevail on our priorities. In terms of how we move next in the timetable, I agree with you. It's got to happen this year before the election year. I do think we need to continue to make the case because, I have tremendous admiration for Lawrence Tribe. I've read his book on impeachment, but he doesn't have to count the votes. Nancy Pelosi, before she can bring something to the House floor, has to know it can get 218 votes, and we're not there yet. I mean, you have 60 people or so who have formally come out for impeachment, and then you have probably 100 or so more who would vote for it. But there are about 55 Democrats who have said they won't, and how to change that opinion is through holding hearings, through having Mueller testify, through having greater public attention, and I think that's what we're doing in terms of aggressively building the case.
Mick in Santa Cruz, California. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Good morning. Thank you both for your service and taking my call. Your opening comment was about the defense spending, and my question to you is any of that money slated to go towards the National Guard that's going to try to keep the immigrants in check? And my purpose for calling was to ask you, is there any light at the tunnel to end the second most important thing that this country faces, and that's the incarceration of children, the first being global warming? I'll take my answer off the phone. Thank you.
Well, Mick, I appreciate it. In terms of the funding of the National Guard, I mean, that is partly through the defense budget, but I think we need to restrict them from having domestic law enforcement, which they are restricted to do, and the president's attempts to do otherwise are blatantly unconstitutional and need to be continually challenged, even in the courts. His efforts to divert funding for border wall security violate so many precedents. And I agree with you. The situation in terms of how we've been treating minors on the border is unconscionable. We have raised that before we fund Homeland Security to make sure that there's far more accountability. And I know that's going to be high on the radar of the Progressive Caucus and, frankly, the entire caucus in Congress.
Congressman Ro Khanna with us, taking your calls for the hour. His website is khanna.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Ro Khanna. And we'll be back with more of your questions for Congressman Khanna in just a minute.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Congressman Khanna, by the way, in addition to representing the 17th District of California in the House of Representatives, is the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And welcome back. Charles in Prescott Valley, Arizona. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yes, hi. I had a question. Well, a question actually. If there's anything that can be done to move Nancy Pelosi from her current position, I think, which is totally irrational, based on what Lawrence Tribe just stated, and I had called 2 weeks ago, given a truncated version of what he mentioned, and one thing of interest, though, which could be passed along to Nancy, is the potential to have the Marshal Service to actually enforce the outcome of any investigation from the House in respect to the release of information and bar testifying. I had mentioned the Marshal Service, which he also mentioned, and while this is under the auspices in a very nebulous manner of the Justice Department, they have always been independent until 2009 when they were made part of the Justice Department, but their main mission remains to enforce the rules of the federal judiciary, which, if Nancy Pelosi would allow it, all those powers would go to the Congress if they did investigate the call for impeachment at this point.
Charles, you raise a couple of interesting points. Let's give Congressman Khanna an opportunity to respond. Thank you for the call. Congressman, isn't the Marshal Service part of the executive branch?
Yes, I mean, my understanding, and I'm happy to look more into it in terms of the Marshal Service being able to enforce something, is that they would need a violation of the a court order to do that. So if a court orders Barr to turn over the underlying Mueller report or to testify and he violates that, then the Marshal Service and marshals could come after him. And I do think we're going to win in court. I mean, that's why we've won on the taxes in an initial ruling. That's why we're voting to allow the Judiciary Committee to go to court to get this underlying information, and that's why we have this contempt motion. In terms of getting Nancy Pelosi to any place, Nancy Pelosi is just looking at where the caucus is, and there are people. It's not that people say, well, it's a matter of leadership. Well, there are 50-some people who are explicitly have come out against impeachment. So Pelosi is trying to convert them. But the last thing, in my view, you would want is for her to bring a resolution to the House that fails. I don't think that serves anyone's purpose.
Yeah, well said. Lowell in Salem, Oregon. Lowell, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna. Lowell, let me put you on hold. I'm sorry. I just got a 10-second cue here, so we're going to hit the music in just a moment. Congressman, at some point, we should also raise the question, if doesn't the Marshal Service, isn't Bill Barr their boss?
Yeah, that's a great point.
No?
He is. Yeah. There's a huge conflict. I mean, if the courts order something and Bill Barr is defying the courts, I mean, you literally have a full-blown constitutional crisis in this country.
Yeah, and that's what Lawrence Tribe said, too. We'll be right back.
So as you probably know, we do special little. You know, every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, you know, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell the list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, you know, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. Talking with Congressman Ro Khanna for the hour. He is taking your calls. And Lowell in Salem, Oregon, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Congressman and Tom. One of my major concerns is poverty. And in America, about half the country lives at or below the poverty level. And I was wondering, and one of the problems with that is all programs are based on the federal poverty level, which is a calculation that is based so low that no one can even live on it. So I was wondering if there's a way for the Progressive Caucus to raise the federal poverty level calculation such that it raises the standard of living for millions of Americans.
Well, I think that's a very important point, and I would support increasing the poverty level. You're absolutely right that many Americans who are making more than the federal poverty line still can't afford basic food and basic shelter, particularly in high cost of livings like California, and the Bay Area, which I represent. I was back this week in my district, and I was talking to someone who serves homeless vets, and he said that the average person, the maximum they can get in CalFresh, which is the equivalent of nutritional assistance, is about $192 a month, which is just absurd when you think how can you survive on that amount. So we need to both increase the benefits for people who really are in need, and particularly for young families with young children, and we need to increase the poverty line standard so we can have a better measure of it.
Conrad in Ramona, California, you are on the air with Congressman Ro Khanna.
Congressman, I'm delighted to hear that you're the vice chair of the Progressive Committee. I have a meme for you. A few months ago, you were on and you said it's true the Democrats aren't very good at coming up with, punchy little bumper stickers. And so these are the first 5 words that should come out of any progressive's mouth when a newsman asks them, well, how will we pay for it? Free college and Medicare, right, et cetera. And the 5 words is the way we did before, meaning the 74% tax rate. That's all.
Repeal the Reagan tax cuts. Congressman?
Well, Conrad, I'd be for repealing the Bush tax cuts, the Trump tax cuts, and for not getting into the bad wars. I mean, my view of our policies is that when Bill Clinton left the White House, we had budget surpluses, and then we went and spent $6 trillion in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we had these massive tax cuts, the Bush tax cuts and the Trump tax cuts. And you put that together, and it's probably $8 to $9 trillion that could fund almost all the progressive priorities. So, I think going back to the time where we didn't have these endless wars or these absurd tax cuts is how we pay for this.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I'm pretty sure Jimmy Carter had a balanced budget at the end of his administration, too. And then Reagan blew that up by tripling the national debt. Will in Santa Barbara, California, on the air
Jimmy
with Congressman Khanna.
If you indulge me, since you mentioned Jimmy Carter, Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just put Will back on hold so you could, sorry about the delay here.
Well,
you were saying.
I was with Barbara Lee, led about 6 or 7 of us down to Plains, Georgia, and we got to hear President Carter speak at Sunday school this past Sunday, and it was one wonderful. He's 94 years old, just had a broken hip, recovered, was in extraordinary spirits 3 weeks after his surgery, and he was talking about part of his sermon was about what does it mean to be a superpower, and he sort of articulated his vision. Then a superpower should be one that's emulated around the world on issues of peace and justice and human rights, and that's the true meaning of what a superpower is. But because you mentioned President Carter, I just thought I'd share that reflection. He's still quite inspiring.
That's a beautiful story. Yes, respect, not fear. We have 1 minute to the break here. Will in Santa Barbara. Quick question for Congressman Khanna.
Hey, thanks, Tom. Hey, Roe, I love what you're doing with Bernie's campaign. I think there's an opportunity within the discussion. I'm seeing a lot of people supporting universal basic income and supporting Andrew Yang, people who are coming into the political system who normally might not. And I know that Bernie has said that he prefers his federal jobs guarantee. I would love it if maybe you could talk to him, because I know that you're in the Silicon Valley world, and a lot of people in that world support universal basic income.
Okay, Will, we're running out of time. Let's let Congressman Khanna respond to what you're saying there.
Well, Will, I think Bernie Sanders' view is that there is a lot of dignity to work, and he wants to have people have productive, meaningful work and jobs. Now, he is for expanding the Social Security disability insurance. If people really can't work for whatever reason, they should be able to have a living wage. But he believes, as I do, that our first responsibility is to give work to most people who want it, and most people in this country want to work, and they don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, which raises a question maybe we can talk about on the other side of the break. Only 67%, I think, of people who are eligible to work are working. Why is the unemployment rate so low if that's the case?
Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back with Congressman Ro Khanna taking your calls and questions right after this. Well, we're live again today, or I'm live again today. We were live last week with Jefferson Smith, and we've got a problem, or Free Speech TV has a problem, which means that you have a problem and I have a problem, because we have not only have we not been hitting our goals, literally every single day we've been doing these fundraising drives or pitches or whatever you want to call them, but we have been not hitting our goals badly. Like, as of this point, we have raised about 20% of what we should have been raising, of what we need to raise in order to keep the network going, in order to keep this show on the air. We are deeply in a hole right now. We've had some just terrible days, literally a $900 day last week. Now, part of that may well be my fault, because last week I was traveling, and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I pre-recorded the requests for fundraising here on Free Speech TV, and maybe people didn't take them seriously because I wasn't live and I wasn't there. They were pre-recorded, and if so, I apologize to you and to Free Speech TV. But although several of the other shows on Free Speech TV are down too, so I think that a lot of it may also be just that people are giving money to their favorite Democratic candidates right now because the primaries are happening, and I totally understand that. I totally get it. But we've got to pick this up today and throughout this week. If we don't, we're really putting this network at risk, and thus this program being on this network at risk. And that's not a good thing. So if you value this program, if you're learning how to win the water cooler wars and deal with crazy Uncle Ralph at the Thanksgiving dinner and talk to your friends knowledgeably about the issues of the day. If you value this, which I hope, the goals that I'm trying to accomplish for you and for me, frankly, I'm very hopeful that you will call today, 877-378-8669, and say, yes, I want to help. I want to help. Whatever it is, $10, $50, $100, whatever you can contribute, 1,000, 10,000, because we are scary falling behind. We have a new set of premiums. I remember, when Donald Trump first got elected, shortly after, actually, I think it was shortly after he was inaugurated, I got a roll of Donald Trump toilet paper and I put it up on the shelf on the set, and somebody called in and said, that's very disrespectful to the presidency. And at the time, I mean, we were thinking, okay, we'll give him a chance. It's 2.5 years later. With a $20 gift now, you too can have a roll of Donald Trump toilet paper, suitable for, putting in the bathroom like the good china, right? You put it in the bathroom when the company comes. With $50, you get these are one-time gifts, so $50, you get a Trump toilet brush with a stand. With a $60 gift, you get both the Trump toilet paper and the stand. With a $120 one-time gift, you get an autographed copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $20 a month commitment for a year, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle, and with a $30 a month commitment for a year, you get the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag and the stainless steel water bottle. It says "Democracy Begins with You" on it. And with a $500 gift, we're going to get together on the internet and have a conversation. We call it a virtual meet and greet, but we'll talk about the issues of the day, and I'll answer your questions. It's not going to be broadcast, so we'll have a candid conversation. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland, Oregon, and hang out in the studio, watch the show. We'll go to lunch, or you can meet me in Philadelphia at the Netroots Nation on July 12th, and we'll have a little cocktail party get together just for $1,000 donors. So those are the premiums. But the really important thing is that we are so scary way behind, and we really need your help. And if you've never donated to Free Speech TV, now is a great time. And if you've already donated to Free Speech TV in the past, and you thought, okay, well, I've given for this year, we need your help for this quarter. We really do. Free Speech TV really does. If we want to make this network work, if we want to keep this programming on the air, it costs money to send the satellite, the streams up to the satellites. It costs money to have a staff that, and rent and things like that. I mean, it's just, nobody's taking big salaries here, there, or anywhere else that I know of that has anything to do with Free Speech TV. This is all, we're all kind of running on a shoestring here, and we're doing it with your help. And a lot of small gifts adds up to something really big and really consequential. And, the occasional large gift is much appreciated, too, if you have the means. And, I realize a few of you may, but, most people, it's a little harder. So, but now is the time, please. Free Speech TV, we just absolutely have to keep this going, particularly as we go to the election. This is such a critical time to have genuine progressive voices out there. We're going to have Ro Khanna on the program today, taking your calls for an hour, for example. You're not going to hear that anywhere else. So call now, please. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I may be coming to your city soon on our book tour for The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. I'll be in New York, Washington, D.C., Portland, Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, and Minneapolis. Here I come. More information is available at thomhartmann.com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here live from Washington, D.C. I'm on book tour here. And in fact, tonight at 6:30, I'll be at Busboys and Poets on K Street. Congressman Ro Khanna is with us for the hour, taking your calls. He's the the vice chair, of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and of course represents the state of California in the U.S. House of Representatives. Steve in Phoenix, Arizona, you are on the air with Congressman Khanna. Steve? I'm not hearing Steve. Congressman, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. So we still have audio. Okay, let's try Carol in Monessen, Pennsylvania. Carol, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Tom. I have a comment and a question for the congressman.
Go ahead, Carol.
Please go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I want to say that I am with Lawrence Tribe on the idea that it's important that we have an impeachment inquiry. But and I also, by the way, understand that it's not just Nancy Pelosi who is holding this all up. I understand that there are a lot of people in the House who are against impeachment. But what I would like to hear you do for me is elaborate the reason behind why they believe, because I don't understand why they believe that impeaching Donald Trump would actually benefit him in some way. I mean, if you bring out all his criminality to the TV public, do you really think that that would benefit him as opposed to hurting him in the next election? I mean, I can see him very easily saying, if you don't impeach me, it's because I'm innocent. I've done nothing wrong. Why are you persecuting me like this? I mean, that's how he thinks. But I would like to hear someone elaborate that argument for me as to how it would help him. And I'll hang up and listen for your answer.
Well, Carol, I think you raise an excellent point, and the Speaker agrees with you that we need to continue to have aggressive investigations to expose the President's misconduct to the American people. If you ask why are there some of my colleagues who are opposed to impeachment, most of them tend to be in districts that Donald Trump carried. You know, I represent a very liberal district. Those votes aren't hard for me, but in districts where which Trump carried, which there are about 31 Democrats, and then there are probably another 30 or 40 seats that are very close. Those members will tell you that when they go home, they don't hear from their constituents about impeachment. They hear, what are you doing to get infrastructure? What are you doing to get prescription drugs lowered? And they want to focus on passing that and say Donald Trump isn't signing any of the things that we're trying to do to make your life better. And they believe that's a stronger argument. Now, I think they need to be convinced that we can't just allow the misconduct to go unanswered, but that is a candid assessment of what the caucus dynamics are, and Speaker Pelosi has to pay attention not just to people in the Bay Area, but to the entire caucus and see what she can get done.
Fred in Los Angeles, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yes, hello, Congressman. Hello, Tom. I have a concern regarding the emoluments clause of the Constitution. The last Supreme Court pardoned, I think it's Governor Edwards of Virginia, and he personally was given emoluments and gifts personally, not for his reelection campaign, but personally, and he was found not guilty by the last Supreme Court. So it occurs to me that if you were to try President Trump on failure, of the emoluments clause, that the Supreme Court could turn around and find that that's not a crime anymore. Not to mention the fact that foreign governments could be given the right of free speech. And so what do you think?
Well, Brett, I think this is why the investigation and making the case to the public is so important. When you have a documented case of a foreign leader who is pushing for war in Iran, and then that foreign leader is staying many, many nights in the Trump hotel because he thinks that may curry the favor of the President of the United States, that is wrong, and that will be appalling to most people who hear about it. Now, whether it's technically legal or not under the emoluments clause of a very conservative Supreme Court isn't the point as much as getting that information out to the American people so folks understand how compromised some of our foreign policy is. And that has been the approach that many in the House have taken, which is we need to bring all of this evidence to light to expose in firsthand and clearly the potential corruption throughout the administration.
Charles in Opelika, Florida. You're on the air with Congressman Connor.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I got a question, and I definitely have a statement because my blood is boiling right now. Just thinking, my statement is this. Just thinking about Joe Manchin, I think a year or two ago on Fox News saying, saying it very proudly to the host on Fox News that he voted at least 60% of the times with Republicans. Now, there's this myth out there, and I consider it a myth, that, just because he don't stand up, just because he has those constituents over there that's among the conservatives, that he always has to vote with them. And I just think if we think about it, that's like one of the major things that's stopping our party from moving forward. And my question is this, and I just want you to know, I'm just asking you, would Donald Trump keep playing with these tariffs and disturbing the market? Just for example, I went to the grocery store this week. Everything was $1 more. And my question is, why do we have these tax breaks for these millionaires? Because if that's supposed to help bolster business, it's not doing it right now. And they had the biggest tax break ever. So please explain to me why the prices are going up, and we had this tax break, and it's just disturbed by just a little play by Trump saying, well, I might raise taxes on Mexico. Thank you for your time.
Well, Charles, I agree with your point on the economics. The tariffs hurt most working class and middle class individuals who are sensitive to prices. Most of Donald Trump's friends are the millionaires who he gives tax cuts to may not notice if the price of groceries goes up or if the price of certain consumer goods go up. But folks who are living paycheck to paycheck do notice. And so he has, the way he's gone about doing blanket tariffs with no rationale has created havoc. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not smart ways to enforce trade. Thom Hartmann and I were going back and forth about that, and that there are not smart ways to have labor enforcement and punitive enforcement, but not in the arbitrary ways that this president has done it, and certainly not when he is at the same time giving tax cuts to the very wealthy.
David in Miami, you're on the air with Congressman Connor.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Congressman. Trump campaign claiming there's a 42%. Maybe we need to remind America he is a wage thief, that he deliberately imports immigrants to work in Mar-a-Lago rather than hire Americans. That would help?
Okay, David, your phone is breaking up really badly, but it sounds like you were asking about, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to drop the call. It sounds like he was asking about Trump hiring undocumented workers at Mar-a-Lago and other places.
Well, David, if your point is that Trump is a hypocrite, that's absolutely true. He has hired people who are undocumented. He has hired many immigrants in his businesses. He conducted himself in a completely different way in his life prior to having to pander to a far-right base to win the nomination. But he's also shameless. So pointing out his hypocrisy doesn't do much to someone who lacks any shame.
Congressman, we just have 30 seconds here to the break. I understand that the House passed comprehensive immigration reform. Was it last year in the previous Congress, and the Senate didn't pick it up? What's the future of that?
The future of it is we have the willpower and the votes in the House, and most people have a very simple view, which is we need a path to citizenship. We need to enforce, as you and I have talked about, enforce the law on the businesses who are hiring folks in a way that is illegal and make it illegal for them to do so. Have smart border security, but not a wall, and have a pathway to citizenship for the 11 million people that are here. The problem is the politics, and the problem is that you don't have a Senate that is willing to act, or a president who is willing to act on it.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Congressman Ro Khanna, the Vice Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, taking your calls for the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls. And welcome back. Mary in Las Vegas. Hey, Mary, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Good morning, gentlemen. I've asked this question before, and I'm repeating myself. Is there some reason William Barr cannot be referred to the state bar to have his law license pulled or suspended for lying to Congress, for deceiving the American people? And also, what is the outcome of holding him in contempt? I mean, these people need to be fined, or something else needs to be done, like with the taxes and all of that. Thank you.
Mary, I agree with you. I mean, William Barr should be disbarred at the very minimum. I mean, he basically misrepresented the Mueller report to the United States Congress and to the American people. President Clinton was disbarred after the whole Lewinsky hearing, and there's no doubt in my mind that the misrepresentations that Bill Barr made are materially far worse. He distorted a entire public hearing and misled the entire Congress and the entire American public in what was supposed to be a accurate legal summary. So I think someone should file with the Bar Association. That's not for Congress to do. Congress can hold him in contempt. Congress can try to compel him to hand over evidence. Any citizen, as I understand it, can, or any organization can file for disciplinary proceedings for William Barr in front of the bar.
Charles in Portland, Oregon. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Tom. Big shout outs from Portland, and really looking forward to seeing you Wednesday night at Powell's for your book tour.
Thank you.
But for Congressman Khanna, I was really interested and curious about corporate personhood. After the Citizens United decision, I think we've been just totally imperiled by that, and I don't see any action taken to try to overturn it. It's certainly not loud if it's going on, and in the meantime, there's all sorts of legal precedents being based on that decision. What's happening with any efforts to overturn corporate personhood? If I could get some answers off that, I'll take that off the air. Thank you.
Well, Charles, I and many progressives are on an amendment to try to overturn the idea that a corporation is a person. It makes no sense in our founding framework, where rights were conferred to individuals and human beings, not to associations. The House Democrats did, in our very first act, H.R. 1, pass a law to overturn Citizens United. Of course, the problem is that the Senate doesn't do anything, and this president doesn't do anything, and so some of the things we're doing in the House are just out in the wilderness, stuck without motion with the Senate or the president. But many people in the House are committed to overturning Citizens United and to overturning this idea of corporations as people.
Do you think that there is any, constitutional amendment's a big lift? Is there anything short of that can be done legislatively?
It's a hard thing given the Supreme Court ruling of corporations as people. And my understanding is that to overturn a Supreme Court decision, you usually need an amendment. But certainly we can look into it if there's anything else. I mean, Citizens United, I think you can overturn in certain ways through statute, or at least chip at it.
Interesting. We'll be right back. You know, every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, you know, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, you know, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Congressman Ro Khanna with us, taking your calls for the hour. And Chris in Albuquerque, New Mexico, you are on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hey, Congressman Khanna and Tom, thank you for taking my phone call. What I'm calling about is I'm actually efforting to see if it's at all possible to get an endorsement for our fantastic Secretary of State, Maggie Toulouse Oliver, for the U.S. Senate race. You know, all due respect to Ben Ray Lujan, but Maggie Toulouse Oliver is out there in front, ahead of the game in regards to Medicare for all, and especially, even more importantly, the new Green Deal. So what do you say, Congressman Khanna? Can we get that endorsement?
Well, Chris, I'm sitting in my office here in the Capitol, so I can't explicitly talk about politics under the House ethics rules. But what I can say is that I'm happy to talk offline when I'm not in the Capitol, and I think that the Democratic Party should have a clear progressive vision for Medicare for all, a $15 minimum wage, a free public college, no unconstitutional wars, a bold Green New Deal climate plan, and I think that that kind of bold progressive vision can win anywhere.
Pastor John in New Haven, Connecticut, you are on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi there, gentlemen. Thank you for getting me on. Thank you so much. Thank you for the hearings you held last week, Congressman. Thank you for taking the TYT pledge, you and AOC. I'd like you to ask the head of the Judiciary Committee, the Homeland Security, and Oversight Committee, Congressman Cummings, to hold hearings. Homeland's done this already, to hold hearings with all of the Secretary of States throughout the country about how they're protecting our vote, and then hold hearings throughout August with all of the Board of Electors throughout the country. We have to safeguard our vote and make sure that there's a paper trail, because you heard what Cohen said. He said that the president may decide not to step down and say that he won the election, you know, even if he loses it. So we've got to secure that vote and show the American public that it's secure. What do you think, sir?
Pastor John, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the chilling part of the Mueller report, which I know many of the listeners here are aware of because Tom has been reading it, the most chilling part is the systematic effort that was undertaken to hack into county board of elections and into Secretary of State websites to try to interfere with the vote. So we need, in my view, paper ballots as confirmation, or we need some basic principles at a federal level that can guide standards to what all localities must comply with to ensure the safety of votes, maybe things that can be verifiable through other technical experts. But this should be a bipartisan issue. I'm happy to recommend we do more hearings. I think it has gotten lost in all of the other terrible conduct of the president with obstruction and in terms of the potential influence that Russia had on the election. People are forgetting the danger our country is in to possible interference with the actual vote count.
Nicole in Menlo Park, California. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Congressman Khanna. I'm one district over from you in Anna Issues, and I used to be a big dollar donor, and then I self-radicalized on the internet, quote unquote, became a progressive, also with the Thom Hartmann Show. And I really want to support candidates who are not being, in the way that you primaried a sitting Democrat. How can I support, what orgs can I look for to support progressives who might be able to primary a sitting moderate Democrat?
Well, Nicole, I appreciate the call. And again, I can't get into too much politics explicitly, but what I can say is I think every candidate, every Democrat should be for competition, for open primaries. And there are a number of organizations that are for open primaries and that have called for competition. That's healthy for our democracy, and it'll move for more progressive values. And I would just encourage you to look yourself online. I can't sort of plug political organizations, and just look for organizations that stand for the principle of competitive primaries.
Chris in Corrales, New Mexico. Oh, actually, Chris, I'm sorry. We just have 30 seconds, Congressman. It's really not enough time for somebody to ask a question. What should we be looking for as we go into this next week here?
Well, on the front of holding this president accountable, which I know is on many of your listeners' minds, I think people should look at the vote we're going to have on Bill Barr and Don McGahn. Look at Nadler taking to court the request for the underlying evidence, and then seeing how quickly the courts will resolve it. Also looking for the Speaker's comments later this week about what exactly the strategy is for being aggressive. All of us have been back in our districts, and she's going to take the caucus's temperature and come out with a strategy.
Congressman, you're doing such a great job. Thank you so much for dropping by today.
Thank you. Thanks for always having me on.
It's always. It's a pleasure talking. We'll be back in the next hour. Alex Lawson with Social Security Works is going to be answering your questions about Social Security and Medicare.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Well, we're live again today, or I'm live again today. We were live last week with Jefferson Smith, and we've got a problem, or Free Speech TV has a problem, which means that you have a problem and I have a problem, because we have not only have we not been hitting our goals literally every single day we've been doing these fundraising drives or pitches or whatever you want to call them, but we have been not hitting our goals badly. Like, as of this point, we have raised about 20% of what we should have been raising, of what we need to raise in order to keep the network going, in order to keep this show on the air. We are deeply in a hole right now. We've had some just terrible days, literally a $900 day last week. Now, part of that may well be my fault, because last week I was traveling, and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I pre-recorded the requests for fundraising here on Free Speech TV, and maybe people didn't take them seriously because I wasn't live and I wasn't there. They were pre-recorded, and if so, I apologize to you and to Free Speech TV, but although several of the other shows on Free Speech TV are down too. So I think that, you know, a lot of it may also be just that people are giving money to their favorite Democratic candidates right now because the primaries are happening. And, you know, I totally understand that. I totally get it. But we've got to pick this up today and throughout this week. If we don't, we're really putting this network at risk, and thus this program being on this network at risk. And that's not a good thing. So if you value this program, if you're learning how to you know, win the water cooler wars and deal with crazy Uncle Ralph at the Thanksgiving dinner and talk to your friends knowledgeably about the issues of the day. If you value this, which I hope, you know, the goals that I'm trying to accomplish for you and for me, frankly, I'm very hopeful that you will call today, 877-378-8669, and say, yes, I want to help. I want to help. Whatever it is, $10, $50, $100, whatever you can contribute, 1,000, 10,000, because we are scary falling behind. We have a new set of premiums. I remember, you know, when Donald Trump first got elected, shortly after, actually, I think it was shortly after he was inaugurated, I got a roll of Donald Trump toilet paper and I put it up on the shelf on the set, and somebody called in and said, you know, that's very disrespectful to the presidency. And at the time, I mean, you know, we were thinking, okay, you know, we'll give him a chance. It's 2.5 years later. With a $20 gift now, you too can have a roll of Donald Trump toilet paper, suitable for, you know, putting in the bathroom, like, you know, like the good china, right? You put it in the bathroom when the company comes. With $50, you get these are one-time gifts of $50. You get a Trump toilet brush with a stand. With a $60 gift, you get both the Trump toilet paper and the stand. With a $120 one-time gift, you get an autographed copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $20 a month commitment for a year, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle, and with a $30 a month commitment for a year, you get the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag and the stainless steel water bottle. It says democracy begins with you on it. And with a $500 gift, we're going to get together on the internet and have a conversation. We call it a virtual meet and greet, but we'll talk about the issues of the day, and I'll answer your questions. It's not going to be broadcast, so we'll have a candid conversation. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland, Oregon, and hang out in the studio, watch the show. We'll go to lunch, or you can meet me in Philadelphia at the Netroots Nation on July 12th, and we'll have a little cocktail party get-together just for $1,000 donors. So those are the premiums. But the really important thing is that we are so scary way behind, and we really need your help. And if you've never donated to Free Speech TV, now is a great time. And if you've already donated to Free Speech TV in the past, and you thought, okay, well, I've given for this year, we need your help for this quarter. We really do. Free Speech TV really does. If we want to make this network work, if we want to keep this programming on the air, it costs money to send the streams up to the satellites. It costs money to have a staff that, and rent and things like that. I mean, it's just, nobody's taking big salaries here, there, or anywhere else that I know of that has anything to do with Free Speech TV. This is all, we're all kind of running on a shoestring here, and we're doing it with your help. And a lot of small gifts adds up to something really big and really consequential. And, the occasional large gift is much appreciated, too, if you have the means. And, I realize a few of you may, but, most people it's a little harder. So, but now is the time, please. Free Speech TV, we just absolutely have to keep this going, particularly as we go to the election. This is such a critical time to have genuine progressive voices out there. We're going to have Ro Khanna on the program today, taking your calls for an hour, for example. You're not going to hear that anywhere else. So call now, please. Thank you. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel,
Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com, and you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
It's the
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. We had a fascinating hour with Congressman Ro Khanna. And before that, Professor Lawrence Tribe of the Harvard Law School was with us for a while, talking about specifically how the impeachment process works, how it gives powers to Congress. I mean, all kinds of really cool stuff. It's been a fascinating couple hours. I'm live here in Washington, D.C. Just a heads up, when you call in today, if you call in, there's about a 1.5 second delay. Because of being remote. I'm transmitting the signal back to Portland here from D.C. So don't be alarmed by that. Just, that's the way it is. But for the next 45 minutes, Alex Lawson is with us. He's the executive director of Social Security Works and the owner of this radio station that I'm broadcasting from, We Act Radio in Washington, D.C. And we're so grateful to them for the studio loan. The website for Social Security Works is, as you may guess, socialsecurityworks.com. You can tweet Alex at ALaw202 or at SSWorks or at We Act Radio. And for the next 45 minutes, we're going to be talking about Social Security, Medicare, prescription drugs, all those kind of things. And if you have any questions about what's happening, where legislation is, who's obstructing what, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys in this, what organizations like Social Security Works are doing, where the real struggles are, where the challenges are, feel free to give us a call at 202-808-9925, and Alex will take your calls. A real expert on this stuff. He lives and breathes this stuff and knows it inside out. So Alex, welcome to your own studio.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
It's a pleasure being here, right?
We love having you, Tom. It's great having you in studio. So thank you for coming to We Act Radio. I mean, you've been a big supporter the whole time, but you also know that this is a pretty unique and amazing enterprise to have this radio station here in Anacostia. So to bring your show to the world from here is an honor for us at We Act Radio.
Well, thank you, and it's really a pleasure being here. So, what is the state of Social Security? What is the state of Medicare? What's going on with prescription drugs? Let's take these one at a time. Where are we at with Social Security? We're hearing the Republicans, probably in anticipation of a Democratic president being elected, starting to yell about the budget deficit. Mm-hmm. Last week, first time I actually, heard a Republican senator going off on it. And of course, usually that precedes this was George W. Bush's whole thing. We just can't afford it. It's right. Social Security. We got to take a bite out of it, which he did, as I recall. So where are we at?
That's basically it. The only wrinkle is that Donald Trump, for all of who Donald Trump is, and he's a terrible person. He actually does understand politics a lot better than some of the consultant class here in D.C. So he actually campaigned, as you know and your listeners know. He differentiated himself from Republicans by saying that he was going to protect Social Security. That was obviously a lie. You just add it to, the book of lies that he has. The people in his administration, like Mick Mulvaney, literally came to this town to destroy Social Security. And
really, Mick Mulvaney?
Yeah, Mulvaney. I mean, Social Security
specifically for that.
Yeah, specifically, they'll frame it differently, but their truth is to get rid of Social Security and Medicare, right? If you can get rid of these two programs that work for people and just force people into an even more uncertain reality than happens right now, they just become grist for the Wall Street mill. The billionaires, private equity, hedge fund, arsonists, that's how they make money. They break things. They don't actually make money by building things. So things that work, like Social Security, they have to destroy it so that people can't rely on it, so that it doesn't give them any security. So Mick Mulvaney is actually the one who, he actually sort of crowed about the fact that he confused Donald Trump, which I don't think is that hard to do, into thinking that there are two different parts of Social Security and that cutting the disability program is not violating his promise. Not that he cares that much, but that's what they've been aiming at. And his budget has massive cuts to Social Security in it. We continue to see those attacks. So that's the administrative side attacks, the death by 1,000 cuts. They have tremendous power there. Probably the biggest news is that they're going to get a new commissioner in, a guy named Andrew Saul. He is a just opponent of the program. So the person who's going to be running the program actually doesn't believe very much that the program should exist. And even more dangerous is his deputy commissioner, Black, is the guy who he is in charge of busting the union over there, of making it such a hostile work environment that people just flee. And then we lose the expertise and the customer service and everything that people love about Social Security. So we need people to understand that this administration is absolutely an enemy of Social Security. No matter what Donald Trump says, he's surrounded himself by people who treat him sort of as a useful idiot. They're pushing their ideological agenda, and they know how to, operate with Donald Trump. And then what you brought up is always the truth. So you have Mitch McConnell, who's been pretty consistently saying, they give away $1.5 trillion to billionaires, people who don't need it, and then they create a deficit hysteria that they say, oh, well, that's why we're going to have to come after, your Social Security, your Medicare.
Yeah, it's Jude Wininski's old two Santa Claus theory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So have they actually yet cut Social Security disability?
No, because we are pretty well armed against those. And the two Santa Claus theory I definitely learned from you in this show, Tom. We know that, first of all, there is only one Social Security, right? Like you and I pay into Social Security. No one gives us anything. We see it coming out of our paychecks. We pay for these benefits, and it's insurance against the loss of wages, which includes if a person faces a life-changing event and becomes disabled and can't work anymore. It's the same insurance, and if the breadwinner of a family dies, then their surviving children get survivor's benefits. It's just one insurance policy, a social insurance policy, but there's no way you can separate it out. And we've been able to actually build a pretty unified and powerful coalition so that when they do try to divide and conquer, we come at them with full force. And we have been able to push back on most of those. You see what happens then is it's like whack-a-mole or a balloon. It pops up in other places. So not to get too in the weeds, but this is how they do it, right? It's confusing.
Sure.
They're redefining something on the poverty line using the chained CPI, which, as you remember, is a benefit cut. So they're using a benefit cut in another issue area to get it through, to sail it through, and then it'll be brought over to Social Security. So
is that because Social Security uses things like the Consumer Price Index to determine cost of living?
And they tried to get it in the front door, just use the chain CPI to calculate people's benefits.
That was the one that Obama almost went along with, and then he backed off when the public outrage got really loud.
when we got very loud and your listeners called in and hammered the phones, right? Like so now they're going in a side door. Those are the kind of tactics that we're seeing. We've been able to fight them pretty well, but it's going to be so much worse when they're actually in charge, when they have a commissioner and a deputy commissioner who are in for 6 years, so you know. Why the Democrats in the Senate did not do everything in their power to block these guys is beyond me.
Well, they don't have enough votes, do they?
They could have bottled them up in committee. They should have used literally I don't think anyone even knew that these commissioners sailed through, right? Like, I feel this is kind of like Barr when they approved him and we're like, oh, what's the worst he can do?
Yeah.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Do you have questions about Social Security? At what age should you sign up, or Medicare, or whatever? Give us a shout. We'll be back with more Alex Lawson. And welcome back. We're sitting here talking with Alex Lawson of SocialSecurityWorks.org. And so
we
that's
have both, though, Tom, so don't worry.
Okay.
But we are a .org.
Good. Yeah, I did the same thing. So Social Security disability is not different from Social Security, first off.
Right. There's only one.
Okay. And the attack that you're seeing right now is on basically the cost of living increases with Social Security.
Yeah, and I will say we're also seeing the normal attacks. So it's always, I put them into 3 buckets. There's like new and novel attacks, because they're always looking for ways in.
They being the Republican Party, basically.
And Republican Party, yes, but also anyone aligned with Wall Street interests.
So there's a few Democrats in this too.
Yeah, definitely Wall Street Dems. Tom Carper from Delaware has never been a friend of Social Security, for example.
Is that because the big banks want to be the only ones who are offering old age pensions?
That's exactly right. As long as Social Security exists, people don't have to put all of their eggs in a Wall Street basket, which is good because Wall Street then takes the basket and onto their yacht, and maybe you get an egg McMuffin from it, but they get the eggs in the basket.
All across America ever since Reagan, and all the people who've lost their pensions when their companies went bankrupt and bankrupted their pension funds and things. I mean, and that was all money stashed in banks.
Yes, and what you're seeing is what they really want is for everyone to be reliant on the market. So they do everything they can to destroy Social Security. The new and novel ones are this poverty line, which you'll see in the news, and it won't mention anything about Social Security. It'll say something like Donald Trump reconfiguring how poverty is calculated, but that's a sneak attack on Social Security. Ivanka Trump and Marco Rubio came up with this idea, this family leave idea, right? Like paid family leave, but it wasn't paid family leave. It actually took your own Social Security and you paid for your family leave. Have you seen that one?
No.
That's actually the most interesting of the new attacks. So they've done it on a couple issues, but the idea there is to get people to think of their Social Security not as wage insurance, but as money that they could be conned into using to pay for other things that they want. So that you're like, no, how about we just have paid family leave? And we pay for it by taxing bankers, and we don't actually take it out of our own retirement. So they've done it on student loans, they've done it on family leave. Those are the novel attacks that we're seeing. Then the normal old straight-on coming for our benefits attack, that's the deficit one you're talking about, and then the administrative budget attacks. Those are the 3 areas that at Social Security Works we're always playing defense by going massively on offense.
Yeah, and it seems that the only way to defeat this is for people to basically rise up and say, this is actually important to me.
Yeah.
And I think when we come back from the break, I want to get into why somebody in their 20s or 30s or 40s should be really, really concerned about Social Security.
Yes.
We'll We'll be right back. Alex Lawson is in the studio with us. We're talking Social Security, and we'll get into Medicare, too, in just a moment here. And if you have any questions, thoughts, suggestions, outrages, experiences you want to share, give us a shout. 202-808-9925. Welcome back. I'm live in Washington, D.C. at the studios of our affiliate here in D.C., We Act Radio, and the owner of the station, Alex Lawson, is also the executive director of Social Security Works, socialsecurityworks.org, and one of the leading experts on this issue in the United States. And Alex, you were telling me, we were talking during the break about how one of the ways that this was Ivanka Trump and Marco Rubio, they want to attack Social Security by saying, well, let's have paid family leave, and we'll just take it out of your Social Security funds. And of course, you don't have Social Security funds. It's one giant pool. So we'll just take it out of Social Security, which is going to kill the organization, or the program, I guess would be the word. And that there's all these other attacks on it. One of the, which is just mind-boggling, how it just never stops. One of the things, though, that I think is really important for people to get is that if you're 25, 30, 35, 40, a lot of young people say, Social Security, it's a pain in the butt because they take this money out of my paycheck every month or every week or every paycheck. And, I'm not going to qualify for it until I'm 7 now. And thank you, Ronald Reagan. And therefore, who in their 20s even thinks about being 67? And I always tell the story when somebody will call up and say something like that. I tell the story of my friend Michael Hutchison. Michael was a dear friend of mine, and this was 30 some odd years ago. And he was an author. He wrote a bunch of books on Mega Brain and on optimal function, intellectual function, stuff like that. And he was out running. He lived in Santa Fe. He was out running in the winter, and he was every morning he'd go for a run. He was running across a bridge over a small river in Santa Fe, and it was icy. And the bridge had a side rail, but it was only about 3 feet high. And he hit a patch of ice and fell over on the side rail and literally flipped, dropped 12 feet into the water and hit the river and broke his neck. And here he is in this freezing water. And thank God somebody else was running and they saw him, because he was paralyzed from the neck down for the rest of his life. And Social Security was what saved him. He had no savings. He had no job anymore. He couldn't write for a living anymore. Eventually he figured out how to occasionally, do something with some voice dictation machines and stuff. And in fact, myself and a number of other people helped him out with that. Bought the computers for him and things. But, Michael would have just, it would have been, hey, just curl up and die. His parents were dead. He didn't have close, direct family. And he lived on Social Security for the rest of his life. They paid for his housing. They paid for his medical care. That's what Social Security disability is. And he was not 65. He was in his 40s, as I recall, maybe even his late 30s. And, because of his condition, he only lived another 15 years or so. I used to go visit him regularly. But that's when it became real for me, that every single one of us has it's not even $1 million insurance policy. Michael, in 15 or 20 years or however long he was on this, probably consumed more than $1 million of Social Security money. You have basically an unlimited insurance policy against a car accident, against a physical accident. If somebody assaults you, beats you up, breaks your neck, injures you in a way that you can't work anymore, if you get a disease, you develop ALS or something like that. These diseases sometimes strike young people and they can't work. How do we communicate that better? I think the average 20-something, 30-something has no idea that Social Security is this mind-bogglingly great insurance program that they have, that they walk around with, that protects them every single day.
Yeah, it's to be cliche, it is a victim of its own success. It operates so smoothly and with such efficiency that people don't even realize they have it until they need it, which is how we want it to operate. But the thing is, there's this coordinated propaganda attack by Wall Street that actually poisons people's brains, because propaganda doesn't, like, just because you're smart doesn't mean that the propaganda is not working. You know them, I know them, a lot of people, you talk to them, these are people who understand policy, whatever. I don't care what room you're talking to. Ask some young people if they think Social Security is going to be there for you, and a lot of hands are going to go up at no. It's not going to be there for them. That they're just paying into the system with no expectation of return.
Well, this has been the pitch from the Republicans for as long as I've been alive. I mean, I've been hearing this since the 60s. You know, Social Security is not going to be. I remember William F. Buckley talking about this on firing line on Corporation for Public Broadcasting, public TV back in the 60s. My dad and I had an argument about it.
And go back even further. I mean, Alf Landon, who ran against FDR, lost every state but one, actually ran on the same thing, that it's not real, it's not going to be there for you. Social Security has never missed a single payment. I mean, it is the most secure thing that you probably have, that the vast majority of people in this country have in terms of an asset. Actuarially, it's around $2 million worth of insurance product that every working family who's paid in actuarially has around $2 million in life and disability insurance. And that inflation protected annuity at retirement is a non-marketable thing. I mean, no business could ever offer that. It's impossible. It can only be done with social insurance. But let's get to your question of young people need to understand that for young people is who we're talking about Social Security for. All the changes, all the attacks, it's for young people. The younger you are, the bigger the cuts to your benefits are being discussed right now. Generally, they actually carve out people who are currently on it, right? They say, oh, no. Not because
we're not going to hurt Grandpa and Grandma,
because Grandma and Grandpa vote every single time on Social Security. I call them always voters.
Well, this is what Reagan did in '82 or '83.
Exactly.
When he cranked the retirement age up to from 65 to 67. But he said, "Oh well, we'll wait. 30 years before that takes effect?
We'll bring it in so younger people are hit harder." And that's why young people have to understand that Social Security that we're talking about is young people are going to be hurt the most if we don't stop these cuts now.
Insane. It's amazing. We're going to discuss Medicare right after the break. Stick around. This is fascinating stuff. It's the Thom Hartmann Program live from We Act Radio in Washington, D.C.
Listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And the website, of course, is socialsecurityworks.org. Alex Lawson, Executive Director. Well, we're live again today, or I'm live again today. We were live last week with Jefferson Smith, and we've got a problem, or Free Speech TV has a problem, which means that you have a problem and I have a problem, because we have not only have we not been hitting our goals, literally every single day we've been doing these fundraising drives or pitches or whatever you want to call them, but we have been not hitting our goals badly. Like, as of this point, we have raised about 20% of what we should have been raising, of what we need to raise in order to keep the network going, in order to keep this show on the air. We are deeply in a hole right now. We've had some just terrible days, literally a $900 day last week. Now, part of that may well be my fault, because last week I was traveling, and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday I pre-recorded the requests for fundraising here on Free Speech TV, and maybe people didn't take them seriously because I wasn't live and I wasn't there. They were pre-recorded, and if so, I apologize to you and to Free Speech TV, but although several of the other shows on Free Speech TV are down too. So I think that, a lot of it may also be just that people are giving money to their favorite Democratic candidates right now because the primaries are happening, and, I totally understand that. I totally get it. But we've got to pick this up today. and throughout this week. If we don't, we're really putting this network at risk, and thus this program being on this network at risk. And that's not a good thing. So if you value this program, if you're learning how to win the water cooler wars and deal with crazy Uncle Ralph at the Thanksgiving dinner and talk to your friends knowledgeably about the issues of the day, if you value this, which I hope, the goals that I'm trying to accomplish for you and for me, frankly, I'm very hopeful that you will call today, 877-378-8669, and say, yes, I want to help. I want to help. Whatever it is, $10, $50, $100, whatever you can contribute, 1,000, 10,000, because we are scary falling behind. We have a new set of premiums. I remember, when Donald Trump first got elected, shortly after, actually, I think it was shortly after he was inaugurated, I got a roll of Donald Trump toilet paper and I put it up on the shelf on the set, and somebody called in and said, that's very disrespectful to the presidency. And at the time, we were thinking, okay, we'll give him a chance. It's 2.5 years later. With a $20 gift now, you too can have a roll of Donald Trump toilet paper, suitable for, putting in the bathroom like the good china, right? You put it in the bathroom when the company comes. With $50, you get these are one-time gifts of $50. You get a Trump toilet brush with a stand. With a $60 gift, you get both the Trump toilet paper and the stand. With a $120 one-time gift, you get an autographed copy of my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. With a $20 a month commitment for a year, you get the Thom Hartmann Program stainless steel water bottle, and with a $30 a month commitment for a year, you get the Thom Hartmann Program tote bag and the stainless steel water bottle. It says "Democracy Begins with You" on it. And with a $500 gift, we're going to get together on the internet and have a conversation. We call it a virtual meet and greet, but we'll talk about the issues of the day, and I'll answer your questions. It's not going to be broadcast, so we'll have a candid conversation. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland, Oregon, and hang out in the studio, watch the show. We'll go to lunch, or you can meet me in Philadelphia at the Netroots Nation on July 12th, and we'll have a little cocktail party get-together just for $1,000 donors. So those are the premiums. But the really important thing is that we are so scary way behind, and we really need your help. And if you've never donated to Free Speech TV, now is a great time. And if you've already donated to Free Speech TV in the past, and you thought, okay, well, I've given for this year, we need your help for this quarter. We really do. Free Speech TV really does. If we want to make this network work, if we want to keep this programming on the air, it costs money to send the satellite, the streams up to the satellites. It costs money to have a staff that, and rent and things like that. It's just, nobody's taking big salaries here, there, or anywhere else that I know of that has anything to do with Free Speech TV. This is all, we're all kind of running on a shoestring here, and we're doing it with your help. And a lot of small gifts adds up to something really big and really consequential. And, the occasional large gift is much appreciated, too, if you have the means. And, I realize a few of you may, but, most people it's a little harder. So, but now is the time, please. Free Speech TV, we just absolutely have to keep this going, particularly as we go to the election. This is such a critical time to have genuine progressive voices out there. We're going to have Ro Khanna on the program today taking your calls for an hour, for example. You're not going to hear that anywhere else. So call now, please. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I may be coming to your city soon on our book tour for The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. I'll be in New York, Washington, D.C., Portland, Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, and Minneapolis. Here I come. More information is available at thomhartmann.com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And in the studio with me, or in his studio, I am. Oh, I don't know how to say it. Alex Lawson, the Executive Director of Social Security Works, is with us. And Alex, let's talk Medicare for a minute. Okay. You know, people talk about Social Security, but then there's also Medicare. I mean, first of all, what's the relationship between the two programs?
So in the original vision of Social Security, there was supposed to be a national health plan. Every single person in this country was supposed to get health care. But they didn't think, even in the New Deal, that they could get that lift. But the idea was it would be the immediate next thing, that the next administration would push through a national health plan. And that is John Dingell Sr. Now, it actually, you know, AMA, Wall Street forces, conspired again, and it didn't look like they could get national health care or cover everyone. So they went with Medicare, what we know as Medicare now, which was for seniors. And that's John Dingell Jr., so his son, John Dingell Sr.'s son, signed Medicare into law. That was like his legislative package. That wasn't done because it was like, oh, let's be nice to seniors, right? Like before Social Security, 1 in 2 seniors lived in poverty. Before Medicare, it was only down to 1 in 3. I mean, Social Security was massively impactful, but when actuaries in the insurance companies would look, they'd basically tell health insurers, as soon as a person gets to 65, lose them. Find any way possible to get them off your rolls. You cannot make money. It is not profitable to insure people over the age of 65. So that's exactly what happened.
So that's why Medicare came along.
People didn't have it. It wasn't, you know, people got sick and died because there was no system there. So we got Medicare as we currently know it, which insures people over the age of 65, disability, and some chronic conditions. Medicare, traditional Medicare, is an amazing program. It's got some problems in it. There are missing features. It doesn't cover hearing, vision, and dental, which makes absolutely no sense at all. It's got a copay, so people have to buy a private insurance product to fill the gap. They're called Medigap products. And, you know,
this is a hole they carved out for the insurance companies
it's
to make
just to make the money.
Yeah.
But even that wasn't enough for them. As you know, they then created Medicare Advantage, which just allowed the private insurers to really take a beachhead more than they had, and they're slowly worming their way all throughout the system to undermine traditional Medicare. The problem is private insurance. They can't be the solution because they are the problem. Denial of care is a concept that we allow to exist in this country, which in a rational healthcare system doesn't exist. If you get sick, you get the care that you need. That's what should happen, but that's not what happens here.
Can we take some phone calls?
Of course.
Okay. Let's see here. Bruce. Bruce, you're in Boca Raton, Florida. You're on the air with Alex.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Alex. Pleasure to speak with you both. My biggest concern right now is that Medicare for All is kind of being overlooked as a side effect of creating jobs, in a sense, reducing the cost of labor and reducing the cost of manufacturing without having to pay for exorbitant for-profit health insurance. I mean, General Motors testified in front of Congress a few years back, basically saying their biggest cost of overhead was not materials, it was health insurance. So that's being really underplayed, I think, in terms of marketing or expressing the advantages of.
In other words, Medicare for All should be pitched as a jobs creation program. Alex, your thoughts on that?
I think that's a really great point. That's a really great point. I think there's two things that are somewhat missed a lot in this. So, Bruce, I think you're right on with that. Another thing I'd note is that people should understand that the first thing that Medicare for All does is it adds vision, dental, and hearing to Medicare. It fixes the problems that exist in traditional Medicare and then expands it to everyone. It has an incredibly robust coverage plan. And because of that, when a business is actually that's selling widgets is able to just focus on selling widgets, then obviously it's going to be better at producing widgets. Why in this country alone have we created a system where the widget manufacturer is also a health insurance marketer, every single year having to negotiate a new policy with the insurers? That's another part that Bruce, I think, implied but didn't state. There's this whole propaganda against Medicare for All that you're going to not be able to see the doctor that you want to see. And I'm like, it drives me mad because that's this system. Our system has narrow networks. Private insurers are the ones that say you can see this doctor, not that doctor. And then every year, if you're lucky enough to have insurance from your job, that policy changes. And the thing that I think, hasn't been examined enough, and I'd love to know if you've looked into this at all, because it's underreported. It's so obvious that they're doing it, but the big insurance is using big data algorithms to systematically look through their policies, identify expensive people on their policies and the doctors that they go to, and then exclude those doctors from the network the next year in the policy because they know that that's where the coverage comes from. So they're finding sick people who need care in their policies and then figuring out a way to not cover the expensive things that they need, and they're bringing the power of Silicon Valley into this game. So it is it would unleash a massive amount of entrepreneurial power if we could just have manufacturers and businesses focus on business and not healthcare as well.
Wouldn't that be nice? Indeed. Let's see here. Sue in Beaverton. Do I have that right? Wisconsin, Sue?
Yeah, in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin.
Beaver Dam, great. You're on the air with Alex.
Well, hi to both of you, and thanks for all that you do. I just have a question for Alex, whether or not he's aware of if there's anyone that is lobbying or looking into having all Social Security non-taxed federally on federal taxes. It isn't taxed until you have a pension or you take money out of your annuity, and then you get over that lap, and a pretty big chunk of your Social Security then can become taxable. And just if there was anyone looking at that, or if you're aware of any lobbying taking place to maybe have that not all of our Social Security be non-taxable. And I'll just take my answer off.
It's a great question.
Thank you, Sue.
Thanks, Sue. It's a great question. So I'm going to give you a sort of, the short answer is yes, but some of those are wolves in sheep's clothing. And then there is somebody who's a true leader on Social Security and a champion on this, who has taken a tough look at that, Sue, and that's John Larson from Connecticut. And he has a bill called the Social Security 2100 Act. And that bill actually expands benefits for everyone, around a 2% increase across the board. It also changes the cost of living adjustment, the COLA, and is more accurate to reflect the costs faced by seniors, folks with disabilities. And it actually also addresses the taxation of benefits. So it changes the way that happens, and so that it would affect less people, and it indexes the amount that's taxed over time. So it adjusts it from when it was put in place in 1983, and then it indexes it over time, so that far fewer people would actually find their benefits being taxed.
Yeah, it's. Do you think that? Do you
Let me actually do a little plug more for that, because we are 9 people away from actually getting 218 sponsors on that bill, which is pretty amazing. We are very close to having enough sponsors on the Social Security 2100 Act that it could pass a floor vote. The only thing holding it up right now, because I think it would pass a floor vote right now if the vote was called, but leadership is actually not moving it to the floor because it doesn't have 218. So Sue and everyone listening, you can go to socialsecurityworks.org and find out if your member of Congress is on the bill. If they're not, really push them, because 9 members away from actually passing an expansion bill out of the House, and that would be an incredible message of the direction that the Democrats are taking. And I don't want to point fingers too much, but leadership is standing in the way of this bill. It would pass right now if it were brought to a vote. But if we can actually get the 218 is the amount of members, the amount of votes that something needs to pass. So if
In
you
the
had,
House.
In the House. If you had the sponsors, the number of sponsors on a bill actually be the amount to pass the bill, there's no way they could get around bringing it to a floor vote. So John Larson is a machine. He keeps pushing his bill, the Social Security 2100 Act, because it actually...
He's congressman from where?
Connecticut.
Connecticut.
And he is the chair of the Social Security Subcommittee on Ways and Means. He is a very powerful member of Congress in leadership. And so we just need those 9 more sponsors, and I think we've got this one out of the House.
Remarkable stuff. Alex Lawson, the Executive Director of Social Security Works, is with us. We'll be back with more of your calls and my conversation with Alex as we continue here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around. What's happening?
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Then when it comes back, we'll be right back with more of Alex Lawson of Social Security Works. Oh, wait a minute, it's 45. We're And welcome back. Alex, let's, just in our final 4 minutes here to wrap this up, where are we at? Where do we go? What can we do?
So we're in this weird moment where, like, the world's obviously on fire. Donald Trump is the president. Things look bleak. And at the exact same moment, there's another side to the coin, which is we're in some of the most tremendous potential for progressive policies that I've ever seen. Medicare for All has, we just announced a hearing in Ways and Means. These big things are happening. That's what we need to do. We need to not just defeat Donald Trump. We need to defeat the situation, the austerity, which leads to fascism every single time. We need to create a system that won't allow him to exist anymore. And what that means is we need to start talking big ideas, the Green New Deal. We need a fight for 15 in Social Security, which we're working on. But we need big concepts. So we need to start talking about lowering the retirement age, and not just a little bit, a lot. Because we need to take on the reality that we're facing right now, that Wall Street has just destroyed the future for so many people. And we need to have laws and a system that replace what we currently have with something that works for the people and not just for Wall Street. So we need to keep demanding more on Medicare for All. We need to demand all the presidential candidates are on board with Medicare for All, with expanding Social Security, with massively lowering prescription drug prices. And we need to take on these industries one by one. Sorry, I say one by one, but what I mean is all at the same time, because what they always have been able to do is point fingers at each other, right? The insurance companies point fingers at pharma points fingers at the pharmacy benefit managers, whatever, all of them. We need to come at them all and demand a future that actually works for us, the people, and the globe. So Social Security 2100 Act, we're 9 votes away. That's just a start. We need to be aiming much bigger. We need to be talking about, doubling people's Social Security benefits, lowering the retirement age, expanding traditional Medicare that's improved to everybody. And I think we're doing a good job, but now is the time to put our foot on the gas. That's how we defeat.
Do you know of any Democratic politicians who are actually talking about that really bold agenda that you just talked about? I hear a lot of stuff around the edges.
There are. If you look at what people like Ilhan Omar is talking about with student debt, she's talking about canceling all student debt. Right. You look at AOC and what she's bringing to the table on a bunch of fronts. Rashida Tlaib, Ro Khanna, Pramila Jayapal, and Mark Pocan at the head of the CPC, the Congressional Progressive Congress. They're actually taking aim at these big ideas, but they're held back by this tiny sliver, the blue dogs, Stephanie Murphy in Florida, who there's so few of them, but
in the Democratic Party.
In the Democratic Party, and they seem to be driving the agenda. So we need to break the stranglehold of what I think of as the 1990s. This is like, it's generationally wrong. It's not made for the moment that we exist in right now, and we need these new voices, these new leaders, empower them and amplify them, because they are on target with what they're looking for.
There you go. Alex Lawson with Social Security Works. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Tom.
SocialSecurityWorks.com. Up next, Lila Connors. We got an amazing new movie coming out. Stick around. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. I just had oh, here we go. Let's get it quickly. On the line with us is Lila Connors. Lila is the producer, director of the new HBO film Ice on Fire, produced and narrated by Leonardo DiCaprio. Tree Media is her company. She's the president of Tree Media, treemedia.com. And it's going to be on HBO tomorrow night. And you can tweet her at Lila Connors or at Tree Media Group. Lila, welcome to the program. Welcome back to the program.
Hi, Tom. How are you? Thanks for having me back.
I am great, and it's so nice to have you with us. Tell us about the movie and tell us how people can watch it on HBO and when. And there's just a brilliant piece of filmmaking, by the way, I have to add.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, it's premiering tomorrow, June 11th, on HBO at 8 p.m. And HBO is then going to put it in front of their paywall for a week or so, starting June 12th. So we're very excited about that, so everyone can see the film. We made the film, as you know, Tom did collaborate. You collaborated with us on this. It is a film about two accelerating stories. One about the acceleration of climate disruption, and the other, the human response to climate disruption, which is human innovation, human solutions to climate, which is not tech-based only. In fact, primarily, it's working with nature, working with natural systems to support those systems so we can draw carbon down out of the atmosphere and take all the carbon that we've thrown up into the sky over the last 150 years, put it back into the ground where it belongs, and proceed forward with renewable energy. So basically, Ice on Fire is about these two stories, one about the acceleration of the melting Arctic and then the exposition of the methane threat, as well as the acceleration of human response to address the problem.
Cool. Lila, by the way, I'm in Washington, D.C. on book tour here, so there's about a 1.5-second delay because, I'm coming in remote. Don't let that disorient you on the phone there. Tell us what kind of a future the world is looking at if we don't do something soon.
Right. So as many scientists have warned us, if we do not reverse business as usual, we will continue to warm the atmosphere and the ice is going to melt. As Jim White says in the University of Colorado in our film, we are headed for an ice-free world if we don't reverse climate change. And that just is not just about rising seas, which is horrific and terrible, but what it also creates is what we call tipping points, where we accelerate warming even further. So if we do not reverse course, if we don't stop burning fossil fuels, we will enter into an era where warming accelerates beyond the capacity for the web of life to support us. And this has happened, as you know, 5 times in the past, in the distant past, in the permanent mass extinction and other extinctions. the TETM extinction, when carbon reaches a certain level in the atmosphere, it causes the web of life to collapse for various reasons. And we go through that. The good news is that we don't have to get to that point. We actually do have the knowledge and the tools to reverse this problem. The big point is that we have to massively scale up. You know, just like we did during World War II with the climate emergency, we absolutely need to implement all of our solutions simultaneously to pull us away from the brink that we've put ourselves on.
Describe the spectrum of solutions that we see in the movie.
Well, the good news is that the Earth cycles carbon already. So if we continue to chop down trees and poison the ocean, and poison the soil, the Earth can't help us. So what we're learning is that soil has 3 or 4 times more carbon in it than what we have in the sky. So organic soils can pull carbon down. Biochar can help sequester carbon in the soil. We also know that trees can pull carbon out of the sky. We also know that kelp is a very powerful plant, the most powerful plant in the world. I've been told that if we plant kelp in 9% of global waters, we can reverse 50% of our emissions. So the Earth is working with us. We just have to work alongside nature and not against it. What's also fascinating is that some engineers in Switzerland have invented a very small direct air capture machine that can actually pull carbon out of the sky and turn it into a rock in 2 hours using geothermal energy. So it's on renewable energy and can actually reverse what we've done. Again, nature is more powerful in terms of the scale at this present moment, but the machines can certainly help, and they're going to become more efficient over time. We also profiled a tidal machine in Scotland and talked about solar and wind. And it's very, very clear right now that solar, in many cases, is cheaper than fossil fuels over the long run. And so with wind and solar and storage, we can power the world. So really, fossil fuels we should move away from that. And we know how hard it is because there's been trillions of dollars invested in fossil fuels. That said, we need to invest in the future of this planet. That is more important.
Yeah. What I really love about the movie is, it's the kind of movie that you could show to anybody. It's not like insiders talking to insiders. In fact, I would love to show it to people who are fossil fuel deniers. I was at a right-wing talk radio conference on Friday, and I was talking to a bunch of right-wingers and saying, you really ought to check this out. But B, it both kind of scares the hell out of you and gives you extraordinary hope. And I'm assuming that was one of your goals, was to present what's really going on and then to say, here's what we can do. And with that, I guess we're out of time. Lila, thanks so much for being with us. The movie, again, can be seen when and where? Real quick.
Ice on Fire, HBO tomorrow night, June 11th, and then in front of their paywall after that for a week or so. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Lila Connors, the president of Tree Media, director of this new HBO film, Ice on Fire, produced and narrated by Leonardo DiCaprio. And I'm in it, too, so say hi. Thanks so much for being with us today. Yeah, thank you, Lila. Thank you. Thanks so much to all of you also for being with us today. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.